Chapter 781. There must be some decisions related to Yi Zhen going to the shareholders' meeting. What exactly was it? What did Yi Nanshan do? There was a flash of gloominess in the depths of Li Juanqing's eyes. His little girl had been bullied. This made him very unhappy. Even if the person who bullied her was her father, he wouldn't allow it. Zhenjin. Li Juanqing's voice was seductive as his palm gently caressed her back. Yi Zhen didn't say anything. She pressed her face against his chest and listened to his heartbeat. His heartbeat was very steady, and the extremely rhythmic sound made her feel a lot more at ease. She had just experienced an extremely tiring and exhausting exercise. She was lazy now. She didn't want to move or speak. She didn't speak, and he didn't rush her. His strong hand gently caressed her back and patted it from time to time. She was as obedient as a kitten and allowed him to pat her back. Slowly, because of his movements, she became sleepy. Li Juanqing didn't wait for her to speak. He couldn't help but kiss her on the head. You don't want to say it. He could find out. But he wanted to hear her say it herself. Yi Zhen's eyes had already closed. It wasn't that she didn't want to say it now, but she didn't know where to start. Uncle, I really felt bad just now. He could tell that the low pressure made him feel it as soon as he entered the door. Uncle, I've lost today. She didn't need Li Juanqing's response. She just wanted to say, my dad said that he wanted to hold a shareholders' meeting, and then he called a few shareholders to the company. Did you know? Those people used to follow my mom. No, they followed my parents to start a business. When she was young, Uncle Shun, Uncle Zhang, and Uncle Jiang. Which one of them didn't hug her? Which one of them didn't say that they would take good care of her after her mother passed away? And then? Yi Zhen thought of the previous scene, and her heart began to twitch uncomfortably again. She held it in. However, the hands around his waist tightened. Uncle Li, do you know how our company got its name? Jiang Hui. Li Juanqing wasn't sure. Is there any special meaning? Jiang is the future. Hui is my mother's name, Lu Hui. Yi Zhen's eyes were still closed, but she found that her mood was much better than before. Thinking of the person who had calmed her down, her voice became softer. What the Shogun Company means is, everything that Yi Nanshan would have in the future was given to him by Lu Hui. That was why the company was called Shogi. It also means that the company will get better and better. Not a bad name. Thank you. I also think that this is a very good name. For a long time, she had been full of pride whenever she introduced Jiang Hui Company. This was the company founded by her parents, and they witnessed the love of her parents. Now, it seemed that all that was left was sarcasm. His mother's love was real, but Yi Nanshan's love was not. Today, I will attend the shareholders' meeting. My dad suddenly said that he wanted to change the name of the company. Name change? Yes, change your name. In fact, with the company's current development, there was no need for a name change. But why would Yi Nanshan do this? He just wanted to make things difficult for her. He said that he wanted to change the name of the company to Nanshan and invited a feng shui master to take a look. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Yi Zhen didn't wait for him to speak and laughed first, because it was really too funny. However, as she laughed, tears flowed out of her eyes. She lowered her head and buried her face in Li Juanqing's chest. Her heart was very uncomfortable, as if it was being pricked by needles. Obviously, I've loved her before. She didn't understand, she really didn't understand. She hugged Li Juanqing, not letting him see the tears in her eyes. He was the one who desperately pursued my mother back then. He was the one who begged my mother to marry him. How can he be so heartless? Why can he marry another woman less than half a year after his wife passed away? Why can he let his new wife make things difficult for his ex-wife's child? Why? She really couldn't understand. Li Juanqing felt the wetness on his chest. The little girl's tears almost scalded his chest. He gently lifted her body up, lifted her chin, and looked at her tearful face. He lowered his head and kissed her eyes gently. Her tears were kissed away bit by bit. Don't think about it. Some people's thoughts couldn't be understood by others. How could she not think about it? Yi Zhen blinked her eyes and suppressed the feeling of wanting to cry. Uncle, do you know? I really don't understand. I can't figure it out either. Why did he do this? How did my mother let her down? Except for the last half a year. My mother was sick and couldn't manage the company anymore. Most of the time, my mother was a very powerful woman. Whether it was at home or at the company, she could arrange everything in an orderly manner. Yes. Li Junqing patted her back. I believe that auntie is a very good woman. Yes. To me, she is the best and most gentle mother in the world. Unfortunately, good people don't live long. Yizhen thought about her speculation during the day and closed her eyes. She hugged Li Junqing tightly, as if she was hugging the last bit of warmth. At this moment, she was very glad that he was by her side. Do you want to do anything? Li Junqing believed that Yizhen wouldn't be a girl who would admit defeat just like that. She should already have a plan. Yizhen shook her head. I have a lot of things I want to do, but now, I have the most important thing. Before that matter, she could only endure it. Li Junqing frowned and looked at Yizhen's disheartened expression. Do you want to admit defeat? No. Yizhen's expression was firm. I can't admit defeat. The company is mine. I won't let the company fall into the hands of that mother and daughter. Yi Nanshan's share was his, so she could forget about it. But she definitely wouldn't give her mother's share to Yi Nanshan. She didn't want Yi Nanshan to give her share to Yi Jianhao one day. Yi Nanshan didn't have any feelings for her daughter, but his feelings for Yi Jianhao were real. It was ridiculous to think about it. What era was it? Her good father actually valued boys over girls. He thought that boys were the ones to inherit the family business, and girls would always marry into someone else's family. What was even more ridiculous was that it was because of Lu Hui that he had such thoughts. Lu Hui was devoted to him. She even had a big fight with her father and brother, because Lu Manjiang didn't agree to her marrying Yi Nanshan. Although Lu Hui insisted and married Yi Nanshan, there was still a rift between her father and brother. However, Yi Nanshan, a man who gave so much to her, felt that no matter how much he gave to his daughter, it would still be for someone else's family. How ridiculous! How ironic! Yizhen felt more and more uncomfortable. She hugged Li Junqing tightly. Her eyes were red, and there were tears in her eyes. She sniffed and shook her head. Uncle, I'm fine. She only allowed herself to be vulnerable for a while, and feel uncomfortable for a while. After calming down, she still had to do what she had to do. Li Junqing kissed her forehead. She looked up at him, as if she didn't understand. If you want to cry, then cry. It doesn't matter. With him, in his arms, she could do whatever she wanted. Yizhen didn't say anything. She didn't want to cry anymore. It's useless to cry. I won't cry. I'll smile. I want to smile and look at them. The final result. She was very strong. In the past, such a strong girl would make Li Junqing admire her. Now his heart just ached. What do you want to do? Tell me. Even if it wasn't convenient for him to do some things, it didn't mean that he couldn't do them. Yizhen shook her head and looked at Li Junqing. Uncle, thank you. But it doesn't matter. I can do what I want to do myself. Are you going to be polite with me? I'm not being polite. Yizhen suddenly smiled bitterly. I know what I can do, but I don't want to do it. What she could do now was to get the partner company to stop 2 projects that were about to be drawn. But this way, it would be no different from killing 1,000 enemies and losing 800 people. She didn't want to do such a thing. It was true that the company belonged to Yi Nanshan, but it also belonged to Lu Hui. She didn't say the meaning of her words clearly, but Li Junqing understood what she meant and hugged her even tighter. He pressed his chin against her hair and gently rubbed it. It's okay. His voice was very soft. If your mother is in heaven, she will understand you. Really? Yizhen's voice was a little bitter. She looked up at Li Junqing. Really? Yes. Li Junqing nodded. Your mother won't blame you. And I believe that she will support you. If Lu Hui was still alive and she knew that her beloved daughter had been treated like this by her biological father after she passed away, she would probably die with a grievance, right? Yizhen was silent, as if she had made up her mind. She looked up at Li Junqing. I have 2 projects on hand that I was following up on myself. Since my father has made me a figurehead, I should have a reason. Let the other party stop the project, right? Of course. Li Junqing unconditionally supported any decision Yizhen made. Yizhen fell into deep thought. She already had an idea about what to do next. However, She didn't tell Li Junqing about her investigation into Lu Hui's death. Deep in her heart, she hoped to preserve a little dignity for herself, even if such dignity looked a little ridiculous. In the end, Yizhen couldn't hold it in. She directly informed the partner company to stop the 2 cases that she was in charge of. In addition, she informed President Ning. The cooperation with President Ning was one of the most important cooperation of the year for the company. After discussing it with President Ning, she told him her thoughts. Putting aside the fact that President Ning knew that she might have a relationship with Li Junqing, he would definitely give her face. Even if it was just for Lu Zhishuan's sake, he would agree. After doing all this, Yi Zhen began the next step of the plan. Before she returned to the company, she could still relax for a while. When Li Junqing returned home, he smelled the aroma of food. He was a little surprised. He followed the aroma into the kitchen and saw the figure busy in front of the kitchen counter. Today, Yi Zhen called him and told him to go home early if there was nothing else. He thought that she wanted him to come back early and go out to eat with her. He didn't expect that she would actually cook herself. When Yi Zhen brought out the dishes, he went forward and put his arm around her waist. I didn't expect you to know how to cook. You're so virtuous. There are still many things you didn't expect. Yi Zhen patted the back of his hand. Go wash your hands first. When I bring out the soup, we can eat. Okay. Li Junqing kissed her on the cheek and went to wash his hands. Yi Zhen brought the food to the table. She was very free today and even made soup. Come try it. I started stewing the soup in the afternoon. It should taste good. She scooped a bowl of soup for Li Junqing. However, I only know how to make simple ones. I don't know how to make complicated ones. Winter melon and pork rib soup. Li Junqing tasted it. It was indeed good. It couldn't be compared to a chef, but at least it was very sweet. Yes, very good. Not bad, right? Although I haven't cooked for a long time, but I still remember how to do it. Li Junqing saw the smugness in her eyes and was a little curious. How do you know how to cook? With the Yi family's conditions, someone should be able to do these things. Yi Zhen sat down after scooping some soup for herself. Her expression was cold. Half a year after my mother passed away, my father often didn't come home. My mother didn't come home, and my father didn't come back. I was bored after doing my homework every day, so I could only stay with the servants at home. The nanny was called Sister Xiao. She was the person my mother was looking for. My mother was no longer around, so she took good care of me. She was afraid that I would feel uncomfortable being alone, so she let me watch from the side when she was cooking. After a long time, I watched for a while. By the way, Sister Xiao is from the south. That's why the dishes today aren't made by Qingqing. Li Junqing could tell. Northerners wouldn't cook like that. Actually, that half a year was fine. Later, my father married Chenwan. Chenwan was pregnant at that time. She lost her appetite, so she started to pick on Sister Xiao. Chenwan said that Sister Xiao's cooking wasn't delicious. Once, she deliberately pulled out a strand of hair from the rice and said that it was Sister Xiao's. She said that Sister Xiao wanted to harm her. Then Yi Nanshan fired Sister Xiao. Actually, she just found out that Sister Xiao took good care of me, so she hated Sister Xiao. Li Junqing was stunned. He hadn't expected such a reason at all. She also knew that if she went too far, she would attract gossip. Besides, my uncle and grandfather were there. Whether it was her or my father, they couldn't deal with me in life. So she could only do these little things. She had shares in the shogi company, which was the property that Lu Hui had left her. She didn't lack money, but she lacked friends and love. Yi Zhen discovered it not long after Chun Wan entered the door. The nanny, the gardener, and even the driver were all there. As long as those people took care of her slightly better, Chun Wan would pick on their mistakes, fire them, and hire new people. That way, the people who worked in the Yi family would only side with Chun Wan and her daughter. She, on the other hand, had become invisible. Actually, I've thought about moving to my grandfather's house. I'll definitely be happier with my grandfather and uncle than with the Yi family. Yi Zhen saw the bottom of the soup in her hand. She got up and scooped some rice for herself. But I thought about it. Why should I? Why should I leave? If I really have to leave, it should be them. Your stepmother. Li Junqing frowned, and a murderous look flashed through his eyes. It's fine. She actually doesn't dare to do anything to me. Yi Zhen smiled. Yi Nanshan is a person who cares about his reputation. I eat and sleep as usual. They still have to take care of me, but they usually give me a hard time. It doesn't matter. Li Junqing put down the bowl in his hand and reached out to hold her hand. He didn't say anything, but there was obvious heartache in his eyes as he looked at her. I'm really fine. Look at me. Aren't I alive and well? Yi Zhen looked carefree. Those people aren't people I care about anyway, so I don't feel bad at all no matter how they treat me. The most uncomfortable thing was Yi Nanshan's attitude towards her. In the past, Yi Zhen had also felt very hurt. She was too young at that time and didn't quite understand. Her mother had just passed away. How did it develop to the point where not only was her mother gone, but even her father was gone? Later, Chen Wan and the others entered the door. Yi Nanshan could only see Chen Wan. Especially after Chen Wan gave birth to Yi Jianhao. To Yi Nanshan, his son became the most important person. Chen Wan also became Yi Nanshan's favorite because of her son. Even Yi Ningen, who was sweet and knew how to please people, was valued by Yi Nanshan. If there was a stepmother, there would be a stepfather. As the child left behind by his ex-wife, she naturally became the least valued one. Li Junqing felt a little uncomfortable. He got up and walked behind Yi Zhen, gently hugging her. He didn't say anything, but his arms around her were a little tight. I'm really fine. Yi Zhen was slightly touched by his actions. She put down her chopsticks and turned around to hug Li Junqing's waist. You don't have to comfort me. I'm already past that stage. She no longer needed Yi Nanshan's fatherly love. She was already mature enough to solve all the problems she encountered in life by herself. I'm not comforting you. Li Junqing turned his head and kissed her on the lips. I just want to hug you. Yi Zhen rubbed her face against his chest and buried her head in his chest. Her voice was very soft. I know. You want to take advantage of me. Li Junqing raised his hand and rubbed the top of her head, messing up her hair. This is taking advantage of me? Then I should let you see what it means to take advantage of me tonight. Yi Zhen's ears were a little red, and her voice was muffled. Yes, isn't that taking advantage of me? Okay, let's eat. She came back to her senses from the atmosphere and gently pushed him. Okay, let's eat. Uncle Li. Mayor Li, who was suddenly despised, was speechless. It seemed like he had to let her know how powerful he was tonight. When Yi Zhen came out of the department store, she realized that she was being followed. At first, she thought it was her imagination. She carried the spoils of war in her hand and continued walking forward. Chapter 782. Yi Zhen was still carrying a few shopping bags in her hands. It was about a 15-minute walk from where she parked her car. She took the opportunity to look at the boutique on the street to see who was following her through the glass window. After noticing that she had stopped, the other party also stopped and turned around. She could only see his back. Yi Zhen frowned slightly. Where had he seen that figure before? Unsure, Yi Zhen continued walking forward. The people behind him followed suit. Yi Zhen looked at the people behind him and quickened his pace. But in his heart, he began to guess who was following her. A few days ago, after the shareholders' meeting, Yi Zhen made a big fuss and asked several companies to stop working with him. To her, if the cooperation project was cancelled, they could still discuss it again. But the premise was that she could continue to stay in the company. She didn't think it was too much to teach Yi Nanshan and Chen Wan a lesson in this way. CEO Ning was the first to make things difficult, explaining that the cooperation back then was for Yi Zhen's sake. Since Yi Zhen could not continue to be in charge of their cooperation, the cooperation could be dismissed. If they wanted to continue working together, they could only let Yi Zhen continue to be in charge of the cooperation. With Mr. Ning taking the lead, the other two companies did the same. Yi Zhen believed that if Yi Nanshan really cared about the company, he would ask her to go back. But she also guessed that Yi Nanshan was determined to kick her out of the company. Losing a few cooperation cases was nothing. If she only relied on this, there was no way she could defeat Yi Nanshan. On the contrary, it might make Yi Nanshan hate her more. Yi Zhen and Yi Nanshan had already reached the point of shedding all pretense of cordiality. She did not care what Yi Nanshan thought. Yi Nanshan must have felt the same. So, Yi Nanshan was the one who sent people to follow her? Yi Zhen immediately rejected the idea. Yi Nanshan had kicked her out of the company, so he must know that she wouldn't just give up and let him do whatever he wanted without fighting back. If it wasn't Yi Nanshan, then it was either Chen Wan or her mother. What were they trying to do? She thought of how she embarrassed Yi Ningen in the company last time. With Yi Ningen's personality, she would definitely think of revenge. She stopped in front of a men's clothing store. He took another look through the glass window, and the man turned his back again. TSK. His tracking skills were really bad. With such bad skills, he still had the nerve to come out and track me? Yi Zhen rolled his eyes and entered the men's clothing store. After entering, he took out his phone to text Ling Xian while he was picking out his clothes. At the same time, he kept his eyes on the outside. The man turned around, but he was wearing a mask and sunglasses. Therefore, he still couldn't see the other party's appearance clearly. Yi Zhen was not in a hurry. This place was very close to Ling Xian's house. With Ling Xian around, she just had to wait quietly for the results. This wrap it up for me. She picked out 2 sets of clothes for Li Junsheng. When she was done, she took a look outside when she paid the bill. That person was gone. At the same time, her phone rang. It was Ling Xian. Zhenjin. Yes. He ran away. Yi Zhen's expression froze. He ran away. Yes, when my men went to catch him, they discovered that he had run away. Ling Xian's voice contained a hint of annoyance. That man is quite vigilant. When he realized that someone was coming, he quickly ran away. There were many people and cars on the road, so he picked a taxi and fled. Yi Zhen didn't say anything, but he confirmed his guess from the side. Next time, I'll definitely catch him. Ling Xian was a little angry. Her family had some gray businesses. Although the Ling family wasn't like the Zhan family, who came from the underworld, they also had many subordinates. If Yi Zhen wanted to trouble her, as long as it wasn't too difficult, she would help him solve it. However, she didn't expect that this time, when she wanted to catch him, he ran away. How could she not be angry? It's okay, there's no hurry. Yi Zhen thought more than she did. Whether or not it was sent by Chen Wan and her daughter, since the other party had made a move, it wouldn't be as simple as following her. There must be a backup plan. Zhenjin, I don't mean to say this, but be careful when you go out next time. How about, I'll let Ah Chang and the others follow you? Ling Xian had some bodyguards at home, and they were very skilled. With someone protecting Yi Zhen, she felt more at ease. No need, I'm fine. Anyway, I won't go to dangerous places. If I really need you, I'll call you. Yi Zhen comforted Ling Xian a few more words before hanging up. As soon as she got home, Yi Nanshan called again. Yi Zhen, did you ask President Ning and the others to stop the cooperation project? How can you do this? Who gave you the right to do this? Who allowed you to do this? The barrage of accusations made Yi Zhen speechless. With such a father, she really didn't know what to say. Dad, you might be mistaken about one thing. The person they wanted to cooperate with was me. Since I'm no longer a member of the company, there's naturally no reason for me to work for the company, right? How can you be so vicious? Yi Nanshan was furious. Other things were fine, but President Ning's case involved a huge amount of money. How could he be willing to lose just like that? Dad, I'm vicious? You've already suspended my position and kicked me out of the board of directors. Why should I still think about it? Yi Nanshan was furious. Hurry up and call me. Let President Ning and the others continue to cooperate with the company. Sorry, I'm no longer a member of the company. Yi Zhen. Yi Nanshan was furious. If his daughter was in front of him, he might have slapped her twice. Why aren't you a member of the company? Don't you still have shares in the company? Do you want to see the company go wrong? It's just 1 or 2 orders, and it will seriously affect the company to the point of going wrong? Then you're really useless as the chairman. Yi Zhen sneered, not giving Yi Nanshan any face at all. Besides, isn't it better if the company goes wrong? Anyway, you're going to change the name of the company. It won't be called Jianghui Company anymore. It will have nothing to do with my mother. If there's really a prime minister, I'll sell all the shares under my name. It'll be just nice. I can live a carefree life. In this way, I'll still make a profit. Yi Zhan, you unfilial daughter, how dare you? If you dare to sell the company's shares, do you believe that I won't beat you to death? I do. Yi Zhan nodded. Is there anything you can't do? Just do it for me. I can also gain some knowledge. I want to see how ruthless a father can be to his own daughter. Rebellious daughter, you rebellious daughter. Yi Nanshan was furious and wanted to scold her a few more times. Yi Zhan wasn't someone who would obediently let him scold her, so she hung up the phone without thinking. When she turned around, she realized that Li Junqing had come back. He might have been back for a while, and she didn't know how much he had heard. He stood behind her with a frown. You're back. Yi Zhan had been shopping all day today, but she hadn't started cooking yet. I'll go cook. Li Junqing grabbed her hand. He looked at her with a serious expression. Did your father cause trouble for you again? Not really. It was just scolding her a few times. It wasn't much trouble at all. He's just very angry. I asked President Ning to stop the cooperation with the company and asked me to call President Ning. Li Junqing's brows furrowed tightly. If your father causes trouble for you, you must tell me. Don't worry, it won't happen. Even if there is, I can handle it. Her uncle called her today, but she didn't say a word. She didn't want him to know that she was with Li Junqing. He just happened to hear her on the phone, so he said it. All right, he's my biological father after all. Even a tiger won't eat its cubs. If he likes to scold me, let him scold me. She just ignored him. Li Junqing's expression didn't look too good. He thought about his previous plan. Zhenjin, do you want to carry out our plan in advance? I think now is a good time. Yi Zhan was stunned for a moment. Thinking of what Li Junqing had said before, she nodded. Okay, now is indeed a good time. Although the painting company might be affected, she believed that after this storm passed, she would let the company recover. Li Junqing wrapped his arms around her waist and lowered his head to smell the fragrance of her hair. Don't worry, I'll help you. Thank you, Uncle Li. Although there were some things that she would learn to solve and deal with even without Li Junqing, because of Li Junqing's presence, she felt much more at ease. Silly girl. Li Junqing flicked her forehead and smiled when he saw the little girl glaring at him in dissatisfaction because of his actions. Let's go. Let's go eat. I haven't done it yet. I don't need you to do it. Li Junqing's expression suddenly turned serious. Zhenjin, you're my girlfriend. You are my girlfriend. I am with you because I like you. I don't need you to do anything for me. If I want to cook and clean up the house, I'll naturally hire someone to do it. But I don't need you to do that. Yi Zhan was stunned for a moment. She didn't really want to rush to do housework and cook, but now that she didn't go to work, it seemed that she was a little too idle. Okay, I got it. She would remember his care for her. He wrapped his arms around her neck. Yi Zhan's voice was very soft. Thank you, Uncle Li. If you really want to thank me, call me hubby. Yi Zhan blushed. I'm hungry. Let's go eat. The two of them hadn't been together for long, but they had a lot of tacit understanding. However, Yi Zhan really felt strange about changing the way she addressed him. Whether it was calling him Junqing or hubby, she felt that it was too intimate. It was so intimate that she wasn't used to it. She didn't call him that, so Li Junqing didn't force her. Instead, he took Yi Zhan out to eat. Qing City Night Bar. Your subordinates are really useless. Yi Ningen sat in the private room and looked at Chen Liang with a flash of disdain in her eyes. They can even lose track of someone. You. Chen Liang didn't expect that Yi Zhan looked so young, but she was so vigilant. I was careless. However, your sister seems to have someone helping her. Oh, my people followed your sister today and found out that not only did she know that someone was following her, but she also called 2 people over. According to the description of her subordinates, the 2 people looked like they were trained. They believed that they were good at martial arts. Yi Ningen sat there and didn't say anything. She wasn't surprised that someone was helping Yi Zhan. Who was Li Junqing? He was the mayor of a city. If he didn't even have this little ability, how could he sit in that position? She knew it in her heart, but her expression still didn't look good. Damn it, Yi Zhan was so lucky. Not only did her dead mother leave her shares to her, she could also get together with a high-quality man like Li Junqing. It would be great if Li Junxing could hate Yi Zhen. Or if Li Junxing was seduced by another woman. If that was the case, Yi Zhen wouldn't have anything to rely on. Good sister. Chen Liang couldn't bear to see Yi Ningen frown. Don't be angry. I didn't think it through this time. I'll personally take action tomorrow. I'll kidnap your sister, take a video of her, and send it to Li Junxing. I believe that the mayor won't want your sister anymore. Without Li Junxing, she believed that Yi Zhen wouldn't be able to do anything by herself. Moreover, her reputation would be ruined by then. Which man would want a woman with a ruined reputation? Chen Liang told her his plan. Yi Ningen thought it was a good idea, but she thought of something else. No, not only do I have to take a video of her, but I also have to feed her medicine and make her beg a man to sleep with her like a slut. I have to make her lose her reputation in the entire Qing city. Only then can I dispel the hatred in my heart. Okay. Whatever you say. Chen Liang patted Yi Ningen's shoulder. As he patted her, his hands started to become dishonest. Good sister, I've helped you like this. I've committed a crime. You can't just let me do it for free, can you? Yi Ningen's body stiffened. She didn't dare to move. After thinking for a long time, she raised her head and looked at Chen Liang. Brother Liang, I'm afraid. She still needed Chen Liang to do things for her. She couldn't offend him now. What are you afraid of? Don't worry, I'll be gentle. As Chen Liang spoke, he pressed Yi Ningen down on the sofa. Yi Ningen was scared to death. She placed her hands on Chen Liang's chest. Brother Liang, this is my first time. You're not going to make me give it to you here, are you? Chen Liang's eyes were filled with surprise and surprise. He kissed Yi Ningen on the lips, and his voice became lighter. Good sister, this is your first time. Of course we can't do it here. Let's go. I'll take you to a hotel. He got up and pulled Yi Ningen up. He took her to a room. Yi Ningen didn't even have time to regret it. Speaking of which, this wasn't her first time. She had been in a relationship in college before. He was a very handsome man whose appearance was quite deceiving. However, at that time, she thought that she had found a rich husband, but she didn't know that he was actually a Phoenix man. After realizing that she had been deceived, Yi Ningen broke up with him. However, because she was confused, she was coaxed by the man into having sex with him. It was too late to regret it later. Therefore, after Yi Ningen broke up, she went for a repair surgery. However, even if it wasn't her first time, Yi Ningen didn't want to give her body to a man like Chen Liang. He was vulgar, and not as good as the Phoenix man from before. At least that Phoenix man had a face. He was handsome, but what did Chen Liang have? At this point, it was too late for Yi Ningen to regret it. An hour later, she appeared in the hotel with Chen Liang. Yi Zhen didn't know that someone was planning to deal with her. All her energy was now focused on how to take back the company. The first step was to return to the board of directors, to fight for her legal rights. The second step, naturally, it was to return to the company. However, the difficulty of the second operation should be a little easier. After she hung up on Yi Nanshan, he was quiet for another 2 days. However, very soon, his call came again. This time, his attitude at the beginning was much better. Yi Zhen, what do I have to do for you to let President Ning work with my company again? If Yi Nanshan could, he wouldn't want to beg Yi Zhen at all. However, he didn't know why. In the past 2 days, there were many companies who said that they wanted to terminate the partnership. 2 of them were even willing to pay the liquidated damages and terminate the partnership with Shogi Company. Of course, Yi Nanshan didn't think that it was a coincidence. The only thing he could think of was that these things should be Yi Zhen's doing. It must be Yi Zhen who wanted to take revenge on him. That was why he made such a scene. Dad, I've already said that I'm not a part of the company now. Why should I let President Ning work with our company? Yi Nanshan was very angry, but he also knew that his daughter was no longer under his control. After thinking about it, he suppressed the hatred and anger in his heart. Yi Zhen, don't you just want to go back to the company? Okay, I'll let you go back to the company. You can still continue to be the leader of the planning department. How about it? Now, can you let President Ning and the others continue to work with the company? Dad, who doesn't know how to talk? How do I know that after I go back to the company, You won't take away my authority, and then kick me away when the cooperation deal is done. Yizhen, since I let you come back, I can't let you go. If you don't believe me, there's nothing I can do. Yi Nanshan felt that sooner or later, he would be angered to death by this daughter. Yizhen didn't care about what he thought. She knew that this day would come, so she had already thought of what conditions to raise. After all, she had never trusted Yi Nanshan. Dad, it's not difficult for you to let me go back to the company. However, if I'm still a small team leader, why should people trust me and cooperate with me? Yizhen, what do you want? I don't want anything. I just want to say that I'm just a small team leader. Although the planning department is a very important department, I don't have the confidence to always negotiate with President Ning and the others. Yi Nanshan was furious. I'll let you be the deputy manager. Is that okay, Dad? You can announce on the company's internal website, newspapers, and online media that you want me to be the manager of the planning department. If you agree, I'll immediately let President Ning and the others work with the company. How about it? Dream on. How could such an important department be handed over to Yizhen? If that's the case, then there's nothing to talk about. Yizhen didn't give him any more chances and directly hung up the phone. When she looked up, she met Li Juanxing's smiling eyes. Chapter 783. Uncle Li. Li Juanxing was reading the documents. When he saw her like that, he put the documents aside and pulled her into his arms. What's wrong? Nothing. She just wondered if he didn't like how she looked just now. Li Juanxing pinched her palm. He turned his head and kissed her on the lips. I think you want too little. Huh? What's the use of being the manager of the planning department? Your right to speak is still too small. You should just ask for the power of the general manager. There's already someone in the position of general manager. Because someone had left the planning department, there was only one deputy manager now. That was Gu Mingxiu. Even if Yi Nanshan didn't like Yizhen before, he still wanted Gu Mingxiu to work as an intern for a few months. When he really had the ability, he would let Gu Mingxiu be the manager of the planning department and let Yizhen be the deputy manager. Yizhen had just graduated from university. No one would be convinced if she didn't make any achievements. That was Yi Nanshan's original words. Yizhen didn't care. To her, it was good enough to work in the company and contribute to the company. What a silly girl. Li Juanxing realized that Yizhen was still too kind. She still cared about the last bit of father-daughter relationship, so she always kept the last glimmer of hope for Yi Nanshan. However, how could someone like Yi Nanshan take a fancy to her useless kinship? If he really valued kinship, he wouldn't have tried so hard to suppress Yizhen. There's already someone in the position of general manager. You can ask that person to give it to you. You're a shareholder of the company. Isn't it easy for you to take a position in the company? Let's not talk about the fact that you have the ability. Even if you don't, so what? Yizhen had never thought about that. In fact, it had been less than 2 years since she graduated. It was already considered fast for her to be able to become the leader of the planning team. Today, after Li Juanxing said that, she realized that she could be more greedy. I reckon that your dad will call again tomorrow. At that time, don't say anything else. Just say that you want the position of general manager. See if he agrees. Then, what if he doesn't agree? Don't agree? It's simple. You should have the information of those customers. Call them and tell them not to cooperate with the company. It's fine if it's done by me, but it probably won't work if it's not done by me. Li Juanxing gently flicked her forehead. Don't you still have me? Yizhen was stunned. Uncle Li? What can you do? He was the mayor. It didn't seem appropriate for him to do something directly. I can't do anything, but someone can. For this kind of thing, as long as he gave Hu Jinyao a call and let him know, it was possible for Hu Jinyao to buy over a company like Jianghui that had just grown up. What if my dad agrees? Isn't it better to agree? Then you'll be the general manager of Jianghui Company. With a higher position, he could take on more responsibilities. Naturally, there were many things he could do. I don't think my dad will agree. So, you can start preparing for what you want to do. Li Juanxing let go of her hand and hugged her waist instead. Trust me. His gaze had the effect of calming people's hearts. Yijin seemed to have completely relaxed. She nodded. Yes, I believe you. Li Junqing smiled. The little girl's pure and trusting gaze made him very happy. He liked that she trusted him, and that she would ask him for help when she had problems. He would take care of his woman, and didn't need her to worry too much. If your dad doesn't agree, remember, propose a shareholders meeting. Li Junqing thought of what he wanted her to do before. You have 20% of the shares. You can also ask for a shareholders meeting. Okay. I know. Yijin knew that Li Junqing was doing it for her own good. He was more thoughtful than her about some things. Before that, I'll get someone to cause some trouble for your dad. He has his own things to solve, so he can't care about what you do. Okay. Yijin understood what he meant. Even if Yi Nanshan was the chairman of the company, it would be difficult for him to deal with the company if it kept having problems. At that time, she could also ask for a shareholders meeting to suppress Yi Nanshan. I'm just a little worried. It's fine if it's Uncle Jiang, but Uncle Shen and Uncle Zhang are obviously bribed by my dad. I don't know if they're willing to stand on my side. Li Junqing played with Yi Zhen's fingers and kissed them. He looked at her with a smile in his eyes. Everyone in the world is here for benefits. What your dad gave them was nothing more than benefits. But if they knew that this benefit wasn't easy to obtain, do you think they would still stand on your dad's side? Yi Zhen was stunned for a moment and looked at him in confusion. Next week, Qing City will hold a forum for outstanding entrepreneurs. We will invite the directors and executives of some very famous companies in Qing City to attend. And then, I'll get someone to send an invitation to the other 3 people in your company. Li Junqing stopped there. Yijin blinked at him and suddenly had a thought. She raised her head and kissed Li Junqing's lips. Uncle Li, you're so nice. She only touched him once before retreating. Li Junqing was not satisfied with her shallow kiss. He grabbed her waist and deepened the kiss until she couldn't breathe. You've already called me uncle, so of course I have to treat you better. Don't you think so? My little niece. He purposely dragged out the last syllable of the word niece. Yi Zhen's face turned red, and she felt her bones go soft. This person was really... Don't call me that. He wasn't much older than her, so he just called her little niece. It was fine if he called her that, but he used such a tone. What? Li Junqing liked to see her like this. Seeing her face turn red, he couldn't help but kiss her again. Just kissing her wasn't enough. He picked her up and carried her to the room. Yijin didn't receive any more calls from Yi Nanshan. Perhaps to Yi Nanshan, it was too much for her to be a manager. He didn't want to. It didn't matter if he didn't want to. Yijin didn't mind. However, she didn't stay idle in the following time. She went to visit the other 3 shareholders and asked them to support her. It didn't matter if they didn't support her. She inexplicably believed in Li Junqing's ability. Then the few cases with CEO Ning still had to continue. However, although it was suspended, it had really affected the company's credibility after a long time. However, she also told them to pretend to stop on the surface. At least, she didn't want Yi Nanshan to notice. At the same time, no one knew what Li Junqing did, but Yi Nanshan lost his temper in his office. After Yi Zhen left, not only did Ning Hai's orders want to be refunded, but the other orders in the past 2 days also wanted to be refunded. One of them was even a client who had been working with them for a long time. If they terminated the cooperation like this, they would have to pay a penalty. However, the other party would rather pay the penalty and stop working with the shogi company. Yi Nanshan really didn't understand and kept asking the other party for the reason. The other party said that the name of the company was going to be changed. Who knew what would happen in the future? He was very angry. He repeatedly explained that the name change was only for the future development of the company and had nothing to do with the business, but the client just didn't believe him. Later, he had no choice but to tell the truth after being forced to do so. Seeing that we've worked together for so many years, I don't mind telling you. Did you offend someone? Someone from above told us not to work with you. Old Yi, it's not that I'm scolding you, but you've been in Qing City for so many years. How can you not know who you dare to offend, and who you don't dare to offend? Offend someone? When did he offend someone? How would Yi Nanshan know when he offended someone? The only person he offended now was his rebellious daughter. Thinking of what Yi Ningen said to Chen Wan and himself before, he became more and more unhappy with Yi Zhen. Now that he heard another company say not to work with them, Yi Nanshan could no longer restrain the anger in his heart. He swept all the documents on the table to the ground. Rebellious daughter. Rebellious daughter. Yi Nanshan was furious. I should have strangled her back then, so that she wouldn't grow up and go against me every day. Dad, don't be angry. Nanshan, don't be angry. It's not good for your health to be angry. Chen Wan and Yi Ningen, mother and daughter, stood in front of Yi Nanshan. Chen Wan patted Yi Nanshan's chest, while Yi Ningen poured tea for Yi Nanshan. Dad, don't worry. I'll go beg my sister, and ask her to be merciful, and let the company go. Don't go. Why do you need to beg that rebellious daughter? Let her see us as a joke? How could Yi Nanshan bear to let Yi Ningen beg others? Yi Ningen put down the tea, and said to Yi Nanshan with an understanding face. He looked at Yi Ningen, and then thought about Yi Zhen. Yi Nanshan became more and more dissatisfied with Yi Zhen. That rebellious daughter actually wants to go back to the company, and be the planning manager. With her attitude of going against me everywhere, and not taking me seriously at all, I won't let her go back to the company. If possible, I even want to give her all her shares. Let's see how she can still be arrogant. Yi Ningen tried to appease Yi Nanshan, but her heart was moved because of Yi Nanshan's words. Give Yi Zhen shares? This was a good idea, but she needed to think about how to do it. She glanced at Chen Wan, and Chen Wan seemed to have the same idea as her. The mother and daughter looked at each other, and understood the meaning in each other's eyes. Everything was understood without words. Yi Zhen felt the feeling of being followed again when she went out. The apartment where Li Junxing lived had good security, and entry and exit were very strict. Therefore, the person who was following her couldn't enter the neighborhood. But once she left the neighborhood, it was not certain. It was not the first day that Yi Zhen felt that she was being followed. In fact, after that day, Ling Xian said that she wanted someone to protect her, but she refused. It was also a good thing for her to lure people out. But when she really planned to use herself as bait to lure these people out, something unexpected happened. That day, she left the neighborhood and bought the ingredients for dinner. Just as she was about to walk back, she found that the person who was following her had come again. This time, it wasn't just one person but two people. The other party thought that they were doing it very secretly, but the sixth sense of being followed, coupled with the feeling that she had been feeling recently, let Yi Zhen know that the other party was following her. However, the places she went in and out were either at the end of the show, in the department store, or on the main road. Those people wanted to kidnap her, but they had to look at the situation and the place. Yi Zhen thought about it, and wondered if she should go to the bar at night. Should she take advantage of going to the bar, and be alone, so that the other party could make a move? She thought about sending the groceries home, and then going to the bar. On the other side, Li Junxing happened to leave a document at home. Because he happened to be passing by nearby, he asked Secretary Chen to send him back, and he came back to get it himself. There was a small pit at the corner of the road, and the car jolted. The moment Li Junxing looked up, he saw someone sneaking around in front of him. Although Li Junxing was an official, he had been in the army for 2 years by his father in the name of gaining experience. He almost immediately understood that something was wrong. In fact, he really couldn't blame Chen Liang for finding such useless people. Because these people weren't here to kidnap Yi Zhen at all, but to confuse Yi Zhen. After knowing that Yi Zhen had someone protecting her, they wouldn't be stupid enough to make a move just like that. Letting these people follow Yi Zhen, and let her discover that they were following her was obviously to distract her. Li Junxing thought of what had happened to Yi Zhen's family recently, and suddenly became vigilant. He glanced at the driver in front of him, Xiao Zhao. Xiao Zhao stopped the car. Find out who those two people are. If necessary, call Chief Jiang. Chief Jiang was the current chief of the Public Security Bureau. With Li Junxing's orders, they could handle these matters with just a word. Yes, Mayor Li. Xiao Zhao pulled over and got out of the car. Although he was a driver, He used to be a special forces soldier. After retiring, Li Junqing arranged for him to drive for him, which could be considered as a bodyguard. Li Junqing was still waiting to figure it out, but Yi Zhen noticed the situation here. She quickly ran over. "Uncle Li, you're back?" She turned to look in Xiao Zhao's direction and stuck out her tongue. "Why did you catch them?" "I was thinking of letting them succeed tonight." When Li Junqing heard this, his face immediately darkened. "What did you say?" Realizing that she had said something wrong, Yi Zhen pulled Li Junqing's hand fawningly. "Uncle Li, don't be angry. I was thinking that if I were the bait, I would be able to lure them into the trap. When the time comes, we can arrest them." Realizing that Li Junqing's face was getting darker and darker, Yi Zhen didn't dare to say anything else. Li Junqing was obviously angry. He glared at her face for a long time and instructed Xiao Zhao. Then, he pulled Yi Zhen's hand and headed straight into the apartment. He walked very fast and his footsteps were also very urgent. Yi Zhen's hand hurt from being pulled by her. Her lips moved, and she wanted to say a few words, but she didn't know what to say. As soon as they entered, Li Junqing didn't even care about getting the documents. He grabbed Yi Zhen's hand and closed the door. "Yi Zhen, tell me, how are you going to lure them into the trap tonight?" The pressure on his body was too scary. Yi Zhen didn't dare to say anything. Li Junqing could understand, even if she didn't say it. He nodded heavily. "What? You don't dare to say it? Let me say it for you. Are you thinking that you'll go out at night and go to a bar? Or go somewhere with fewer people? If they see you alone, they'll make a move?" So that was what she was thinking. And then, Li Junqing's expression was already quite ugly. "Tell me, what do you plan to do next?" Yi Zhen's voice was very soft, and she didn't dare to speak. She was especially afraid that Li Junqing would tear her apart the moment she opened her mouth. "Uncle Li, don't be like this." "Like what? Tell me." Li Junqing squeezed her shoulder a little hard, insisting on an answer. "I won't be alone." Yi Zhen seemed to be defending herself. "It's true, I know a friend. Her name is Ling Xian, and her family has some connections. My original plan was to pretend to take the bait, and then let Ling Xian arrange for someone to follow. When the time comes, not only can I catch them all in one fell swoop, but I can also catch the person behind them." The more she spoke, the darker Li Junqing's face became, and the softer Yi Zhen's voice became. At the end, her voice was almost inaudible. "Good, that's good." Li Junqing nodded. Seeing that Yi Zhen didn't feel that she had done anything wrong, he sneered. "My Zhen is really a brave little girl, right? Not only can she lure those criminals out by herself, but she also wants to find the person behind them by herself. Zhen is really too brave. And, no, you just what? You just want to achieve your goal, but you don't even care about your own danger, right?" Li Junqing interrupted her, and didn't give her a chance to speak. "You just want to lure the people behind them out. You just want to be bait. Haven't you ever thought that something might go wrong? Your friends' people might lose track of them. That group of people might also be divided into several groups. Even if your friend didn't lose track of them, if the other party was anxious and wanted to silence them to get rid of future trouble, how many lives do you think you have?" She really hadn't thought about it. Thinking of what Li Junqing had said, she felt a little scared. "You what?" Li Junqing looked at her. Only now did he start to know fear. He became even angrier. "I just happened to come back today. I met you and found out. If I didn't come back, were you planning to go out and die by yourself at night?" "Yes, I might not be going to die." Yi Zhen's voice was extremely soft. "Maybe I'm lucky and can really solve it?" Li Junqing was so angry that he wanted to laugh. Usually, other than being a little slow in relationships, Yi Zhen was also a smart person. How could she be so naive now? "Do you think you're lucky?" Yi Zhen felt inexplicably guilty. Li Junqing was furious when he saw her unconvinced look. Chapter 784. Yi Zhen had never been beaten in her life. Yi Nanshan was dissatisfied with her, but he only scolded and stabbed her a few times. He didn't dare to really hit her. As for the others, such as her uncle and grandfather, they didn't even have time to dote on her. Why would they hit her? Li Junqing's hand wasn't weak. He hit her a few times in a row. At first, Yijin didn't react in time. She endured it, but later, she couldn't take it anymore. After being hit a few times in a row, he burst into tears. You hit me. I'm hitting you. Li Junqing felt that this little girl really deserved a lesson. Didn't she know what she could and couldn't do? Thinking about what would happen if he didn't break through, and the little girl really ran to do such a dangerous thing. Li Junqing felt a lingering fear. He exerted more strength and hit her twice. You're still hitting me? Yijin's voice changed. Her eyes were filled with tears, and her voice trembled. You hit me? You actually dared to hit me? She struggled, and Li Junqing hit her twice again. Li Junqing hit her a few times, and his meaning changed. The feeling under his palm wasn't bad. He still remembered how he held this side when the two of them were in bed. As soon as his thoughts came to mind, the punishment couldn't continue. The little girl lay on his lap, sobbing, her little body trembling. There were a few clear palm prints on her snow-white skin. Li Junqing looked at the marks, and began to feel a little heartache. The little girl's skin was tender, and any touch would leave marks. Now that he hit her like this, the marks looked very obvious. He didn't know how many days it would take for them to disappear. Most of his anger dissipated. He retracted his hand, and helped her put on her pants. He helped Yijin up and held her in his arms. Yijin really felt wronged. The tears in her eyes hadn't fallen yet. Yijin had been hit by him just now, and now that she was hugged and sat down by him, it hurt even more. She actually wasn't in so much pain that she couldn't stand it. However, the grievance in her heart overwhelmed everything. She couldn't help but lean over and bite down hard on his shoulder. Li Junqing took a deep breath. He didn't push Yijin away, but let her bite. Yijin bit for a while and felt that her teeth were sore, so she stopped. She glared at Li Junqing, looking quite wronged. You hit me. She said it again. When had she ever been beaten since she was young? Not only did he hit her twice, he even wanted to hit her so many times? Yes, I hit you. The little girl was angry now. Li Junqing knew it when he saw her bite him. Now that the beating was over and the anger had been vented, it was time to coax him back. Why did you hit me so many times? Yijin felt even more wronged. Li Junqing sighed in his heart. You said I hit you? Why don't you think about why I hit you? Yijin raised his head and glared at him. In any case, you're in the wrong for hitting me. She was slender and he was tall. She sat in his arms and scolded him in an accusatory tone. Yes, it's my fault that I hit you. Li Junqing had never had such an experience. He was too angry just now. When he thought of the little girl's decision to put herself in danger, he could not calm down. After living for more than 30 years, he finally found a girl that caught his eye and that he liked. If something really happened, where could he find such a girl that caught his eye? He lowered his head and gently kissed her eyes. He kissed away the tears in her eyes. Seeing that she still looked wronged, he tightened his grip on her body and let her snuggle in his arms. It's my fault for hitting you, but why don't you think about what you want to do? You want to lure out the bad guys. You want to lure out the person behind the scenes. You can find me. If you want to know who wants to hurt you, you can tell me. Li Junqing raised his hand and gently tidied up her hair that was messed up because she was lying on her stomach. His voice was low and hoarse, but it was very gentle. You only want to solve your trouble, but you don't think about me. Don't you think about what I will do if something happens to you? Yijin bit her lip and looked at Li Junqing's face. She said casually, what does it have to do with you? If something happens to me, you can find another one. Li Junqing's anger, which had finally subsided, almost flared up again. He didn't want to spank her again, but he couldn't help but lean over and bite her hard on the lips. After biting her, he couldn't help but kiss her again, a thin kiss. Yijin despised this kind of method of giving a carrot after a stick. She couldn't help but bite him back. Li Junqing felt the pain and knew that the little girl was angry, but he was even angrier than her. He used his innate advantage to kiss Yijin until she couldn't breathe. Yijin couldn't speak. She stared at him with wide eyes full of accusation. She really was a little girl. Li Junqing stopped the kiss, but he still pressed his forehead against hers. You're really a little heartless one. I've already done this to you, and you still want me to find another one. Yi Zhen was stunned and couldn't say anything else. Li Junqing pinched her nose. Tell me, are you heartless? What's my relationship with you? Without you, where do you want me to find one? Where can I find a little girl like you? Yi Zhen blinked, as if she couldn't understand what Li Junqing meant. She was really a silly little girl. Li Junqing kissed her again. However, this time, he could only give it a try. Li, I still have a meeting to attend later. Li Junqing looked at the time. If he didn't leave now, it would really be too late. This meeting is very important. As Li Junqing spoke, he hugged her tightly again. Be good and don't run around at home. Do you hear me? Yi Zhen glared at him unhappily. She wasn't a child. Where could she run to? I'm serious. Li Junqing was afraid that she would be impulsive. Those people are all small fries. Don't think about putting yourself in danger. I won't agree. Uncle Li, don't call me. It's useless. Li Junqing looked into her eyes with a very serious expression. Zhenzhen, maybe you will think that I'm overbearing. Maybe you will think that your family has disappointed you. It doesn't matter even if something really happens to you. But I want to tell you, no matter what your family thinks of you, no matter what other people think of you, in my eyes, you're my little girl. A unique little girl. Do you understand? He said it so attentively and seriously. Yi Zhen could even clearly see her own shadow in his eyes. At this moment, she could feel her heart beating very fast. The emotions that were almost surging out made her unable to help but wrap her arms around his neck and kiss him. If it was any other time, Li Junqing would definitely press the little girl under his body and make her unable to get out of bed. But today he really couldn't. After the little girl kissed him, he hugged her tightly and calmed his breathing. I'm going to the meeting. You have to be good. Do you hear me? Yes. He sounded like he was coaxing a child. But she wasn't annoyed at all. Yi Zhen nodded, her face still a little red. After meeting Li Junqing, it seemed that many things would become very wonderful. She never thought that one day, there would be a man who would affect her emotions like this. And the serious look in his eyes when he looked at her let her know that what he said was true. Previously, when Li Junqing said that he liked her, she still felt that the other party's status was too different from hers. Maybe he just wanted to play. She also had the same thought. She accepted it only because Li Junqing's conditions were too good. She felt that she was actually not at a disadvantage. But now, she realized that Li Junqing's feelings for her might be deeper than her feelings for Li Junqing. Thinking of this, all the resentment from before disappeared. She buried her head in his arms, a little embarrassed. Li Junqing really wanted to bring this little girl with him wherever he went, but he couldn't. He picked her up, carried her back to the room, and put her on the bed. Sleep for a while. Don't worry about those things for now. I'm here. Okay. Yi Zhen replied in a voice as soft as a mosquito. Li Junqing looked at her like this and really loved her. He couldn't help but kiss her deeply again. Seeing that her face was red, and she didn't dare to look at him, Li Junqing forced himself to get up. I'm really leaving. Stay at home and don't run around. Also, you don't have to cook tonight. I'll ask Xiao Zhao to pick you up later. We'll go out to eat. Okay. Someone is knocking on the door. See who it is first. I know. She wasn't a child. Was there a need for him to be so careful? Yi Zhen couldn't help but glare at him reproachfully. You're still glaring at me? Aren't I worried about you? Li Junqing really felt that this little girl was too heartless. Now wasn't a good time to educate her. He hurried to the study to get his documents and left. The room quieted down. Yi Zhen turned over and accidentally hit the bed again. She let out a pft. In the end she held it in. Thinking of the way Li Junqing talked to her just now, and how he only had her in his eyes, her heart suddenly started to heat up again. Uncle Li was really a very good person. The two of them were so intimate, but she still called him Uncle Li. Was it not intimate enough? Why don't she call him Junqing next time? Yi Zhen felt that calling him, that was a little too mushy. Pulling up the blanket to cover her face, Yi Zhen covered her face and smiled softly. Forget it. I'll call him that when I have the chance. Li Junqing told her not to run around, but he was still worried. After getting into Xiao Zhao's car again, he asked Xiao Zhao what was going on with the two of them. Mayor Li, the matter has been dealt with. Chief Jiang has already called to take care of it. The two of them have been taken away. Also, they keep begging for mercy. They're being wronged. Wronged. What happened after the woman who followed him? What would happen? Li Junqing didn't dare to think about it. When he thought about it, he had the urge to kill someone. Take care of them. Whether they admit to their crimes or not. Let them stay in there for a while. After he finished speaking, it was the turn of some outstanding entrepreneurs to speak. During the conference, Chairman Shen and Chairman Zhang's phones rang twice. When they got up to answer the call, Director Zhang's phone rang. Li Junqing watched as the three of them went out to answer the phone. He sat in his seat, and his eyes were indifferent. He seemed to be smiling. Very soon, the three of them came in again, and their expressions were not very good. Especially Director Zhang. His expression was extremely ugly. Li Junqing glanced at Secretary Chen behind him, and gave a few instructions. Secretary Chen acknowledged and went out. The symposium went on for the whole morning. Soon, Chairman Shen and the others couldn't sit still anymore. They quickly got up and were about to leave. Unexpectedly, Secretary Chen stepped forward and said a few words to them. The few of them looked at each other, and quickly looked in the direction where Li Junqing had been sitting. Li Junqing's figure had already disappeared. Half an hour later, Li Junqing's figure appeared in a private room of a hotel in Qing City. Secretary Chen followed behind him, and the two of them entered the room together. Chairman Zhang, Chairman Shen, and Chairman Jiang were already waiting inside. When they saw Li Junqing enter, the three of them stood up together. Mayor Li, yes, sit down. Li Junqing's expression was calm. The three of them looked at each other. They had already discussed for a long time. They really didn't understand why the newly appointed mayor wanted to see them, and why he wanted to see them alone. Li Junqing asked them to sit down, but the three of them stood for a while. After Li Junqing sat down, they also sat down. They waved for Secretary Chen, and asked him to ask the waiter to serve the dishes. As they spoke, they gave Secretary Chen a look. Secretary Chen understood and quickly left. I didn't call you here today for anything else. Li Junqing picked up the teapot in front of him, and poured tea for the three of them. Chairman Jiang, and the others' expressions changed. Especially Chairman Jiang, he stood up. Mayor Li will do it ourselves. How can we let Mayor Li do it? It's fine. Li Junqing smiled. I'm also a human. There's nothing special about me. Why can't I pour tea? Chairman Jiang felt his hair stand on end. He didn't understand what Li Junqing was trying to do. After the mayor came here, there were only a handful of people who could see him. Li Junqing looked gentle and amiable, but no one dared to underestimate him. Because when he came, he did something to warn the others. In the first month of Li Junqing, who was in charge of economics, a company wanted to open a new factory. All the approval procedures had been completed. However, Li Junqing came. He personally inspected the site, and found that this company didn't meet one of the indicators. He directly ordered the other party to stop building the factory. The factory manager thought that Li Junqing disliked them for not giving gifts, so he prepared a generous gift and sent it to their door. Unexpectedly, Li Junqing directly sent their gifts to the Discipline Inspection Department. They couldn't run away with a bribe. The other party wasn't convinced, and still wanted to go against Li Junqing. However, Li Junqing found evidence of the other party illegally discharging pollutants. Two crimes at the same time. Now, not to mention building a new factory, the old factory was closed down for rectification. Not only was he fined a large sum of money, but the factory manager was also imprisoned for a few months because of this. This matter caused a huge uproar in Qingqing as soon as it arrived. Those people also knew that Li Junqing looked easy to talk to on the surface. But he was a hard bone to chew. Right now, this legendary mayor who was hard to talk to was personally pouring tea for them, who were a little famous in Qing City, but couldn't be considered a big shot. How could they not be afraid? Mayor Li, I didn't know you invited us here. I'm sorry. Li Junqing interrupted them. I should have treated you to a drink, but as you know, public officials can't drink during work. So we can only use tea instead of wine. Mayor Li, you're too polite. Mayor Li, you're too polite. The three of them spoke together, and their expressions became more and more uneasy. Especially Director Zhang. He asked Mayor Li twice why he invited them, but he didn't get an answer. He felt uneasy. Li Junqing didn't answer their questions. Instead, he asked Secretary Chen, who had re-entered the door, why the dishes weren't served yet. Secretary Chen nodded and said that the dishes would be served soon. As expected, the waiter soon brought the dishes up. Li Junqing looked at them and smiled. Then let's eat first. If there's anything, let's talk after dinner. With Li Junqing around, how could Director Zhang and the others have a say in these matters? A waiter opened the door, and the people behind began to serve the dishes. The first dish was placed on the table. It was just a simple pig's heart soup. This first dish is called Clear Mind. This second dish is rare to be confused. This third dish is called A Gentleman Loves Money, but he takes it in a proper way. This fourth dish is called A Wise Man Submits to Circumstances. Li Junqing personally announced the names of the dishes. These dishes were each stranger than the last. Director Zhang and the others were all smart people. When they heard the last two dishes, what else could they not understand? Mayor Li was probably here for them today. They didn't know what they had done wrong to actually trouble Li Junqing to give them some pointers. After Li Junqing finished announcing the names of the dishes, he asked Secretary Chen to sit down and eat with him. Come eat. Don't stand on ceremony. Although the food is simple, the names are still pleasant to hear. Have a good taste. I believe it will have a different taste. The few directors trembled. They didn't understand what they had done at all. Or did they do something wrong? How could they still have the appetite to eat? They were all extremely nervous. Li Junqing's appetite was not bad, and he was quite satisfied. He was satisfied, but the others were even more nervous. After they finished eating, Director Zhang and the others didn't eat anything at all because they were so frightened. After they finished eating, Li Junqing asked someone to bring up the fruits after dinner. I still have to work later. Please help yourself, directors. Mayor Li, you're welcome. Director Zhang was a little older after all. After eating, he also wanted to ask, Mayor Li, you haven't told us why you're looking for us. It's nothing. I just want to treat you to a meal. Li Junqing said it casually, but they didn't dare to. Director Zhang wanted to ask, but Director Jiang gave him a look. Director Zhang didn't ask anymore. After Li Junqing finished eating, he wanted to leave. However, when he was about to get up, he suddenly glanced at Director Zhang. I heard that Director Zhang's company needs a loan? Yes. Director Zhang had just picked up the phone to talk about this matter. They were shareholders of Jianji Company, but it was impossible for them to only have Jianji shares. Other than Jianji, they also had other businesses. Director Zhang had been working on a project recently and needed a loan of hundreds of millions. However, the bank called today and said that the procedures had been approved, but they insisted on reviewing it again. That was why he was so anxious. It wasn't just him. Director Shen and Director Jiang had encountered similar problems. They didn't understand what was going on. It was clearly the same as usual, so why couldn't they review it? It's a good thing to take a loan to do business, Li Junqing said at the right time. Not only can it develop our Qing city's economy, but it can also promote employment. The other three didn't understand and thought that Li Junqing was praising them. However, Li Junqing changed the topic. However, I happened to meet President Zhou, President Yang, and the others at a meeting in the city a few days ago. They complained to me. They said that it's easy to give out loans now, but it's hard to get them back. Many companies don't have the qualifications at all, but they like to put on a show. In the end, they have a headache when they repay the loans later. So it's not easy to give out loans now. Director Zhang felt a chill run down his spine. He almost instantly understood what Li Junqing meant. Li Junqing stopped talking and didn't continue. All right, in short, you're all outstanding entrepreneurs in Qing City. I understand. Later, tell President Zhou and the others that your company is different from others. Tell them not to block your loans. Don't you think so? Yes. Hearing this, what else could Director Zhang and the others say? They didn't know what they had done wrong to make Li Junqing target them. Director Jiang and Director Shun felt that they had been wronged. They didn't understand how they had offended Li Junqing. After thinking about it, they couldn't figure it out. They didn't know what they had done wrong. so they went to ask Secretary Chen. Li Junxing didn't care about what happened after that. Originally, there was no need for him to personally deal with such a small matter. However, when he thought of his girl being bullied by these people, he was very angry, very angry. He was so angry that he wanted to teach these people a lesson personally. What was the point of eating a meal that made them feel so uneasy? His girl couldn't be bullied by anyone except him. He didn't know if the girl who called him didn't have her phone with her, but she didn't pick up the phone. Li Junxing frowned. He thought to himself that perhaps he had to hire a nanny. If she stayed at home, not only would she cook for her, but she would also be able to keep an eye on her. There were many things to do in the afternoon. There were 2 meetings and an inspection. Li Junxing was busy until 8 o'clock in the evening. When he returned home, the little girl was playing with her phone on the sofa. He didn't know what she was playing, but she was so engrossed that she didn't even notice him entering the door. Li Junxing frowned because of the little girl's neglect of him. He changed his shoes, entered the door, and walked behind Yi Zhen. Only then did he realize that Yi Zhen was actually playing with Xiaoping. The corner of Li Junxing's mouth twitched for a moment. He reached out to take Yi Zhen's phone. Don't move, don't move. There are only 3 steps left. I still have a few ice cubes to remove. Yi Zhen turned around and blocked the phone from Li Junxing. This stage is very difficult. Don't touch me. His charm wasn't as great as a phone. Li Junxing laughed angrily. He pulled her body in his direction and reached out to take her phone. Yi Zhen pressed the last step, but because of Li Junxing's movements, her hand shook and she pressed the wrong button. Ha! I'm dead. Yi Zhen was furious. She stood up and glared at Li Junxing. It's all your fault. I passed this stage for a long time. You know how sad it is, right? Li Junxing looked at the screen on the phone. The cartoon character on it was crying. You've been playing with your phone at home all day today? Yes. Yi Zhen didn't think she was wrong. You didn't let me go out, so I could only play games at home. As she spoke, she wanted to snatch her phone back. Li Junxing raised his phone high. Yi Zhen didn't manage to grab it. Instead, she hung on to him. Uncle Li. Li Junxing put his phone aside and pulled her into his arms to sit down. Didn't your dad call you? No. Yi Zhen shook her head. He definitely won't agree to my conditions. Li Junxing's brows furrowed tightly. Yi Zhen suddenly smiled. I'm sure that my dad is thinking about how to deal with me now. As she spoke, her phone rang. The 2 of them looked at the coffee table at the same time. Chapter 786. Yi Nanshan. Calling her at this time? Yi Zhen turned to look at Li Junxing. He signaled for her to pick it up. Hey! Yi Zhen. Yi Nanshan's voice was filled with dissatisfaction. What did you do this time? Why is it that even On Yuan Company doesn't want to cooperate with us? On Yuan Company had been working with them since the establishment of shogi. How could Yi Nanshan not be angry when they said that they didn't want to work with them now? You mean this? Yi Zhen really felt a little wronged. What can I do? What happened to On Yuan Company was really not done by her. She didn't think she was that capable. She just made a few phone calls and said a few words to those companies in Ninghai. Yi Zhen, don't go too far. I'm your father. Heh. Yi Zhen laughed. Am I too much? How can I compare to you? You. Yi Nanshan sneered. Fine. Do you really want to turn against me? Dad, I don't like what you're saying. What do you mean by I have to shed all pretense of cordiality? Aren't you the one who wants to shed all pretense of cordiality? Yi Zhen didn't give Yi Nanshan a chance to speak. My mother's body hasn't even cooled yet, and you're already in such a hurry to find a new wife. After marrying Auntie, in order to please Auntie, he coldly watched as Auntie treated him coldly. Why am I the one who's going overboard now? Yi Zhen, since you insist on taking things to the extreme, let's just wait and see. Okay, I'll accompany you anytime. Yi Zhen really didn't understand. He was clearly his biological father. How could he treat him like this? No matter how he thought about it, he could only conclude that the 2 of them were not fated. It's okay. It'll be fine. Li Junxing had already warned Director Shen and the others. As long as they weren't muddle-headed, they would know which side to stand on. Think carefully about how to unite with the other shareholders to pull your father down from that position. All right. Yijin nodded. This was what she needed to do the most right now. However, Yijin didn't expect that Yi Nanshan would make a move before she had time to convene the shareholders' meeting. When Yijin saw the lawyer in front of him, he was momentarily stunned. She looked at the person in front of her in confusion. It was a lawyer who came looking for him today. His surname was Ding. He was the lawyer representing the Jianji company. Yijin knew this person, and also knew that some of the legal matters of Jianghui were handled by him. However, the news brought by lawyer Ding today made Yijin stunned on the spot. What did you say? I said according to Madame Lu Hui's will. The shares that Madame Lu Hui left behind are still in dispute. My client asked me to come to you and ask you to hand over 20% of your shares so that we can redistribute them. Had nothing to do with her? Yijin narrowed his eyes and looked at the person in front of him. Say that again. We have evidence here that Ms. Lu Hui was unconscious when she made this will. Since she did not make this will in a sober state, the authenticity of the will needed to be discussed. Yijin now understood that this was Yi Nanshan's backup plan. He had been waiting for him here. Lu Hui was afraid that Yi Nanshan would not take good care of her daughter after her death, so she gave her daughter 20% of the shares. The lawyer from before had the surname Shi. He had once been entrusted by Lu Hui to make a will for her. Yi Zhen, who was only a teenager at that time, naturally knew about this matter. Lawyer Shi met through the Lu family's relationship, so when Yi Zhen went to the Lu family in her early years, she could often see Lawyer Shi. However, Lawyer Shi had followed the immigrants to Canada 2 years ago, so it was difficult to find him now. Lawyer Ding, when my mother made her will, I have a memory. What you just said is not valid. The shares that her mother gave her were hers. She would not give them to anyone. I'm sorry, Missy. I can understand your feelings. But there are some things that I still need to let you know. As he spoke, Lawyer Ding took out a few documents and spread them in front of Yi Zhen. Missy, you can take a look. This is your mother's medical record. Yi Zhen had always wanted to know the cause of Lu Hui's death. She picked up the medical record on the table and looked at it. There were many names on it that she could not understand, but there were 2 dosages and instructions that she could see clearly. Clozapine. Miss Yi, you should know. Clozapine is a treatment or something, right? I don't know. Yi Zhen clenched the report and looked at Lawyer Ding with an unfriendly gaze. Lawyer Ding, please explain it to me. Okay. Lawyer Ding took out another explanation. We all know that clozapine is a drug for treating mental illness. What do you mean? Yi Zhen's face was already quite ugly. Miss Yi, I can understand your feelings. But the truth is the truth. Lawyer Ding said expressionlessly. He pushed the rest of the documents in front of Yi Zhen. The truth is that your mother was in a very bad state when she made the will. In addition, she has been taking clozapine. We also have reason to doubt the authenticity of the previous will. Therefore, we have every reason to doubt the authenticity of the previous will. Yi Zhen couldn't bear to listen any longer. Lawyer Ding, why don't you tell me directly? You now suspect that this will is fake. Then what do you want? Miss Yi, Mr. Yi is your biological father. He doesn't want to go against you in court. Therefore, the best way is, Miss Yi, take the initiative and transfer the 20% shares to your father. Of course, as a reward for your cooperation, I will give you a certain amount of compensation. As for the specific conditions, you can set them yourself. Yi Zhen sat there. For a moment, she only felt that her brain was as uncomfortable as if it was going to explode. She stared at the face of the person in front of her, from anger at the beginning to calmness later. She raised the corner of her lips and looked at Lawyer Ding with a faint smile. Lawyer Ding, did you say that? So, what you just said was your intention? No, it's Mr. Ye's idea. Lawyer Ding was afraid that she would not agree, so he deliberately added. Miss Yi, you have to understand that if such a lawsuit really goes to court, it will not do you any good. Yi Zhen nodded as if she understood her situation. Okay, I understand. She picked up her mobile phone and called Yi Nanshan. Lawyer Ding thought that she had figured it out, but he didn't expect the task to be so simple. Yi Zhen's phone was connected. She looked at Lawyer Ding's face expressionlessly. Dad. Yi Zhen. Of course, he knew what Yi Nanshan had done. After listening to Chun Wan and Yi Ninggen's instructions, he questioned the authenticity of Yi Zhen's shares. Yi Nanshan was ready to receive Yi Zhen's call. His daughter would be unhappy and lose her temper. Just as he was about to explain to himself, Yi Zhen's voice was extremely soft. Dad, don't you want my shares? Yi Zhen, I don't want your shares. I just think that after all, you are going to marry out, and these shares are all Yi family's. Dad. Yi Zhen didn't want to listen to his extremely hypocritical polite words. It's actually not difficult for you to want shares. Dad, if you want shares, it's simple. You go with Chun Wan to see my mother. At that time, I will definitely burn the share transfer authorization for you to see. Yi Zhen, Yi Nanshan was furious. He slammed the table hard. Yi Zhen completely ignored him and hung up the phone. After hanging up the phone, she looked at Lawyer Ding coldly. Lawyer Ding, you should have heard what I just said, right? Being stared at by Yi Zhen like that, Lawyer Ding suddenly had a feeling of cold sweat on his forehead. Yi Miss Yi. Enough. Yi Zhen didn't give him any more chances. You are not welcome here. Lawyer Ding, please. Miss Yi, you. The shares are in my hands, so they are mine. It doesn't matter if you don't accept it or protest. It doesn't matter even if you go to court with my father. Since I've already decided, I won't be afraid of losing. She stood up with a cold expression. You can try. Let's see if your request can be fulfilled. Lawyer Ding was experienced and knowledgeable. Previously, whenever Yi Hui asked him to deal with something, he handled it very well. He had also met Yi Zhen a few times. However, none of them had made him feel fear like he did this time. Miss Yi, why are you so stubborn? If you really go to court, you won't gain anything. What's more, this will disturb your mother's spirit in heaven, so get out. It would have been better if he didn't mention Lu Hui. As soon as he did, Yi Zhen looked like she couldn't control herself at all. If my mother really has a spirit in heaven, I'm afraid she will first send a bolt of lightning down and strike all of you to death. Miss Yi, get out. Get out of here. I don't want to see you. Yi Zhen's temper flared. Lawyer Ding had no choice but to leave. When he left, he didn't forget to try to persuade Yi Zhen again. However, Yi Zhen was angry. Seeing that Lawyer Ding still wanted to talk, she couldn't help it. She got up, picked up a vase on the coffee table, and was about to throw it at his face. Lawyer Ding was startled and quickly left. After he left, Yi Zhen covered her heart with one hand, then retreated to the sofa and sat down. Yi Nanshan, Chun Wan, Yi Ninggen. Good, you guys are so good. Before her mother died, they didn't let her live well. Now for a little bit of shares, they dug out the so-called medical records many years later. What clozapine? She had never heard of it before. If Lu Hui had a mental problem, then it wouldn't have been a random will, but it would have directly dragged that scumbag Yi Nanshan down with her. Thinking of this, Yi Zhen's head ached. She pressed the painful place and thought about Yi Nanshan's motive for doing these things. She couldn't help but call Ling Xian. Ling Xian. Yi Zhen wanted to ask if Ling Xian had found out the cause of Lu Hui's death. Zhen. Ling Xian said happily on the other end of the phone. I've restored the video of that night. In other words, I found the man. Chapter 787. Yi Zhen couldn't hide his excitement. Really? Of course. Ling Xian couldn't hide the pride in her voice. Yi Zhen had entrusted this matter to her for a long time, and it was already too slow for her to find that person now. At this moment, Yi Zhen couldn't care less about the cause of Lu Hui's death. Her grip on the phone tightened. You said that you recovered the video from that day? Can you really see who that person is? Yeah. Come to my house quickly, or should I go to your house to find you? I'll come over now. It was impossible for Yi Zhen not to be excited. As long as this person was not found, he would be a threat. Yi Nanshan didn't even care about his reputation anymore. How could he say that his mother was delirious when she made the will? How could this be? Yi Zhen sneered in his heart. However, he was very sure that this was one of the ways they could deal with him. Without the shares, he would lose control of the painting company. At that time, they would have the final say in Jianji Company. As for her, she couldn't even keep the property her mother had left her. Yi Zhen's expression was cold, But he didn't have the time to settle the score with Yi Nanshan and the others. It didn't matter. She had to eliminate the potential danger first. As long as that man was not found, she would not be at ease. He rushed to where Ling Xian was. She and Ling Xian had been good friends for many years, and Ling Xian usually worked at the Ling family's company. She had a good relationship with Ling Xian. Almost as soon as she entered Ling Xian's office, someone came over and led her upstairs. You came? Ling Xian waved at her and gestured for her to go behind her desk. Yizhen walked over. Ling Xian had already clicked on the video and started playing it. You can take a look. This is the video of the man entering the door. Okay. Yizhen stood beside her and watched the video. The video started with the scene of Yizhen being sent into the room. Yizhen was carried in by someone. It was obvious that he was drunk. Soon a man appeared. The man was supported by someone, and he looked like he was drunk. However, the man seemed to be drunk as well. He could only see his back. However, just this back view alone was enough to make Yizhen feel familiar. The man was helped into the room, and she saw the man's side profile. Yizhen was completely stunned. She was very familiar with that side profile. Was that him? No. Impossible. How could Li Junqing be the person from that day? Yizhen thought he was seeing things, but the video continued. In the blink of an eye, it was the next morning. When Yizhen woke up, he didn't have time to take a good look and left in a hurry. But not long after, a person entered the room. Yizhen also knew that person. It was Secretary Chen. Soon Secretary Chen came out. The person behind him was Li Junqing. Li Junqing? How could Li Junqing be the person from that night? Chapter 788. Is it a lot? Yizhen shook her head. No. I only drank some beer. Drank a little? Li Junqing turned around and looked behind Yizhen. What happened? What's wrong? Yizhen frowned. She stared at Li Junqing with wide eyes. I want to know too. What's wrong with me? She reached out to hold Li Junqing's shoulder and exhaled a breath of alcohol. Why don't you tell me what's wrong with me? Zhen. Uncle Li. Yizhen blinked with a confused expression. Do you like me? There was something wrong with Yizhen today. Li Junqing reached out to put his arm around her waist and pulled her into his arms. They had been together for almost 2 months, but this was the first time he had seen Yizhen like this. I do. Really? Really? Yizhen waved his hand away and took a step back. I don't believe it. Yizhen. You definitely don't like me. Yizhen shook her head. She had drunk alcohol, and this action made her even more drunk. She blinked and looked at Li Junqing. Uncle Li, you don't like me. Li Junqing's brows were tightly knitted as he watched Yizhen pretend to be crazy. He reached out to hold her in his arms and looked into her eyes. I don't like you? Yes. Yizhen nodded with a drunk look. Li Junqing narrowed his eyes and reached out to carry her. You're drunk. I'll take you back to the room to rest. Yizhen wrapped her hands around his neck and stared into his eyes very seriously. Uncle Li, have you ever lied to me? He didn't answer, so she asked again. Uncle Li, have you ever lied to me? Li Junqing was now sure that the little girl was drunk. No. Really? Yizhen blinked, her hands still on his neck. She blinked her misty eyes and looked at him. His heart softened, and he couldn't help but kiss her on the lips. Tell me, what have I lied to you about? With the little girl, he might have used some tricks, but there was definitely no deception. Who knew that Yizhen would fall silent after hearing his words? She lowered her head with a dejected expression. Zhen. Yizhen struggled a little, trying to get out of his arms. Li Junqing watched as she took a step back, then another. Finally he sat on the sofa. He bent his knees and reached for the wine again. Li Junqing stopped her from taking the wine. He sat down beside her, lifted her up, and held her in his arms. Yizhen looked at him and reached out to grab the wine in his hand. Don't drink anymore. Li Junqing didn't understand what had happened to Yizhen, but his intuition told him that it was related to him. What happened? Uncle Li. Yizhen buried her face in his chest. She lowered her voice and said helplessly, I lied to you. Seeing that Li Junqing was confused, he held Yizhen's shoulder and wanted her to look up, but she refused. Uncle Li, I lied to you. Yizhen lowered his head and looked at him. Actually, you should know. When I was with you, it wasn't the first time. Li Junxing was stunned for a moment and suddenly realized something. Zhenzhen, it actually doesn't matter. It does matter. Yizhen gritted her teeth. My first time was given to a male prostitute. Male prostitute? Li Junxing's expression became a little subtle. Zhenzhen, you. I hate that male prostitute so much. Yizhen gritted her teeth and said, Uncle Li, do you know? That male prostitute was found by my damned stepsister. She took advantage of the celebration banquet I attended with my colleagues the day before, and brought me to the hotel room. Li Junxing actually knew what happened after that. His fingertips twitched, wanting Yizhen to forget about it. Yizhen suddenly raised her head and looked at him. I drank wine and was unconscious. I only know that I was taken advantage of, and... She didn't finish her sentence. Yizhen's eyes were red. Zhenzhen, you. Yizhen's expression became more and more painful and aggrieved. Uncle Li, do you know? Today my stepsister and stepmother found a lawyer. That lawyer told me. What did she say? Li Junxing looked at her and felt very distressed. He wanted to hold her back in his arms. Yizhen's expression was more conflicted and painful than before. She said that she took a nude photo of me that night. Li Junxing's expression was a little subtle. He looked at Yizhen. Zhenzhen, actually. Yizhen's expression became more and more pale. She began to cry. Her hands gripped the front of Li Junxing's shirt tightly, and her body trembled. Yi Ningen said that she wanted me to transfer 20% of the shares under my name to her. If I didn't agree, she would release my nude photo. Uncle Li. She buried her head in Li Junxing's arms and burst into tears. What should I do? Li Junxing narrowed his eyes. Thinking of his previous investigation, his expression didn't look good. He hugged Yizhen tightly and gently patted her back. Don't think too much. She won't. Why not? Yizhen raised her head. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears, and her little face was covered in tears. She looked extremely pitiful. Since she took a photo of me, she will definitely use it to threaten me. Uncle Li, I don't want my photo to be seen by everyone. I don't want to transfer my shares to her either. What should I do? I'm here. A dangerous glint flashed across Li Junxing's eyes. Damn Yi Ningen. It seemed that he didn't have time to deal with her before. But she had the chance to come out and mess around. The most important thing now was to solve the matter in front of him. Uncle Li, even you can't do anything, right? Yizhen's face was filled with despair. Uncle Li, tell me, if you were me, what would you do? Would you transfer the shares to her? Or would you not transfer the shares to her and let her spread my nude photos all over the world? There's no need for either. Li Junxing patted her back. Chapter 789. Li Junxing didn't care about that. He pinched her palm. He really couldn't do anything to this little girl. You cried like that just now. You really scared me. Don't do that next time. Her acting was so real that it made his heart ache. How could he watch his little girl cry like that? The shyness on Yizhen's face suddenly disappeared. She looked up at Li Junxing. Uncle Li, what I said just now is true. What? My dad found a lawyer and said that my mother was delirious when she made the will and asked for the 20% of the shares to be redistributed. When she said this, Yizhen couldn't hide the mockery in her eyes. Her voice was a little bitter. Anyone would not be in a good mood after being schemed against by their biological father like this. Li Junxing's face darkened. He had already started to make a move on Yizhen's matter recently, but he didn't expect the other party to be so shameless. Uncle Li, my dad. Yizhen didn't know what to say. She definitely didn't believe that this was Yi Nanshan's idea alone. She was afraid that the mother and daughter pair were adding fuel to the fire behind the scenes, causing Yi Nanshan to make such a stupid move. Don't worry about it. Leave this to me. Yizhen shook her head and looked at Li Junxing. She suddenly said, I'm not surprised that my dad would think of a way to deal with me, but I didn't expect him to throw away his last bit of face. He said that my mother is mentally ill. He doesn't even care about my mother's last bit of reputation. She really couldn't take this lying down. If she didn't teach the other party a lesson, if she didn't make Chen Wan and the others pay the price, then where was the heavenly Tao? I even have reason to suspect that my mother's death back then had something to do with my dad. Otherwise, how could a good person disappear just like that? She suddenly turned to look at Li Junsheng, her expression full of pleading. Uncle Li, help me. This was the first time she had clearly said these two words to him. In the past, she thought that she could bear it and get through it by herself. However, she didn't expect that the human heart was more sinister than she thought. However, she couldn't wait any longer. Okay. Li Junsheng hugged her waist and held her carefully in his arms. Leave everything to me. Don't worry. Yi Zhen put his face close to his chest and listened to his heartbeat. The insecurity and uncertainty were finally put down. She trusted him. Yi Zhen knew that nothing could be accomplished overnight. She didn't expect to get rid of Chen Wan and her daughter so quickly. It had been a long time since that incident. Perhaps all the evidence had been destroyed. Even if she wanted to, it wouldn't be that easy. But before that, it was still okay to cause trouble for the mother and daughter. Yi Zhen requested for a shareholders' meeting. She informed Director Shen, Director Zhang, and Director Jiang in advance. They had all been beaten up by Li Junsheng before. In addition, they had other businesses, so they were unwilling to offend Yi Zhen, who didn't know that the Li family was powerful. They were an established aristocratic family in Rong City. People like them couldn't afford to offend them. After Yi Zhen called for a shareholders' meeting, he informed Yi Nanshan. So, when Yi Nanshan received the message, he was already late. Yi Nanshan looked at his daughter. How could he be angry? Yi Zhen, what right do you have to call a shareholders' meeting without my permission? Didn't I inform you? Yi Zhen looked as if she had done her duty. Aren't you here now? Yi Zhen, Yi Nanshan was about to explode. Chen Wan, who came with him, tugged at his sleeve, telling him to endure. Yi Nanshan sat down in his seat and looked at Yi Zhen coldly. Okay. You asked us to call a shareholders' meeting. Then, I want to ask you, what is it? Since I asked you to call a shareholders' meeting, of course it is. When Yi Zhen spoke, she smiled and stared at Yi Nanshan coldly. I, Yi Zhen, hold 20% of the shares of Shogi Company. Now, I want to enter the board of directors and become the chairman of Shogi Company. As soon as she said this, Yi Nanshan and Chen Wan looked at her as if she was an idiot. Yi Zhen, are you crazy? Yi Nanshan slammed the table and stood up. Do you know what you are saying? I'm not dead yet. Yi Nanshan was furious. He glared at Yi Zhen as if he was looking at his enemy. You want to be the chairman? Dream on. Whether I'm dreaming or not, I have to do it to know. Yi Zhen nodded and looked at the anger on Yi Nanshan's face. Dad, do you want me to remind you? If I want to enter the board of directors or become the chairman, I only need a vote from the shareholders. Yi Nanshan laughed angrily. You mean you want to hold a vote now? Don't forget, your shares were obtained through illegal means. Whether it was obtained through illegal means or not, I can't be bothered to talk to you now. If you have the ability, sue me and go to court. When the time comes, I will carry out the court's decision. Up until now, I am just driving. I have the rights of a shareholder. Ridiculous. Yi Nanshan looked at Yi Zhen coldly. You mean, you think you can become the chairman of Shogi Company? Do you have the ability? Whether I have the ability or not for now, it depends on everyone's opinion. If Uncle Jiang and Uncle Shen think I have the ability, then it means I do. Yi Nanshan had a bad feeling in his heart. However, he would never admit that he would lose to Yi Zhen. He sneered. Fine. I want to see if you can get what you want. Want to pull him down from the chairman position? Dream on. Yi Zhen, I have to remind you that I have 45% of the company's shares. What about you? How much do you have? 20%. Don't you think you can pull me down with your mere 20% of shares? Isn't that ridiculous? Chapter 790. With that, Yi Zhen was the first to raise his hand. Chairman Jiang and the others did not move. Yi Nanshan smiled. He did not believe that these people would be manipulated by Yi Zhen. However, in the next second, Chairman Jiang and the others' actions made Yi Nanshan's expression change. Chairman Jiang? Chairman Jiang, and Chairman Shun raised their hands at the same time. They only looked at Yi Zhen, not daring to meet Yi Nanshan's eyes. Yi Nanshan clutched his chest and looked at these people in disbelief. His chest heaved up and down heavily. He glanced at Chairman Zhang in shock. Old Zhang Yu. Chunwan's expression was ugly. She did not expect things to turn out this way. Old Shen Yu. Yi Nanshan could barely stand. Chunwan hurried forward to support him. Nanshan, how are you? Are you okay? As she spoke, she turned to look at Yi Zhen. Yi Zhen, you've gone too far. How could you treat your father like this? I don't have a father like that. Yi Zhen stood there expressionlessly. His eyes were cold. I don't have a father who cheated on my mother when she was sick. I don't have a father who would humiliate his wife in heaven for some shares or property. I don't have a father who is biased and only cares about other women. Father? Heh. He doesn't deserve it. Yi Nanshan was a good father to Yi Jianhao and Yi Ningen, but not to her. You rebellious daughter. Yi Nanshan's voice trembled. You want to be the chairman? In your dreams. Chairman Yi, I suggest that you calm down. Compared to his exasperation, Yi Zhen was much calmer. She looked at Yi Nanshan coldly. You already know the results of the vote. What you've done is indeed unworthy of being the chairman. Everyone's vote was just the right choice. I don't deserve it. Yi Nanshan was furious. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. If I don't deserve it, who does? You. Yi Zhen smiled. She sat down again and looked at the other three shareholders. Uncle Shun, Uncle Jiang, Uncle Zhang. Who do you think is suitable? The three shareholders looked at each other. In the end, Director Jiang stood up and looked at Yi Nanshan. His voice was soft and he looked guilty. But when they thought of Yi Zhen's backer, the last trace of guilt disappeared. I suggest that Yi Zhen be the company's chairman. I agree. I agree. Zhang and Shen Erdong followed suit. Yi Zhen raised his hand, a faint smile on his face. I agree even more. Yi Zhen you. Yi Zhen acted as if she didn't see his ugly expression. She stood up and looked at Yi Nanshan. Chairman, you know I can't call you that now. Could you please give me your office tomorrow? I need it. Don't go overboard. Chunwan took a step forward and acted as if she was standing up for her husband. Nanshan is your father. I know. I don't need you to remind me. Yi Zhen's expression was indifferent. Director Yi, that's all I have to say. I hope you can give up your office to me as soon as possible tomorrow. After saying this, she turned to look at the other three shareholders. Uncle Shun, Uncle Jiang, Uncle Zhang, thank you for today. Please believe me. If Jianji Company is in my hands, I will definitely make it better. This is my promise, and please believe that I will do it. There was nothing the three of them didn't believe. She had a strong backer. They had to believe it even if they didn't want to. Yi Zhen, I believe you. Yes, we all believe you. Such a big change caught Yi Nanshan off guard. He didn't expect it at all. He didn't even know what method Yi Zhen used to make the three shareholders stand on her side. You. Yi Nanshan's face turned green, and his face was full of shock. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't feel comfortable having their power seized by their own daughter so easily. Not to mention that he had never liked this daughter. Okay. Yi Zhen smiled and took a step back. She looked at Yi Nanshan's green face. I've said what I wanted to say and done what I wanted to do. Director Yi, see you tomorrow. She walked past Yi Nanshan. When she walked to him, she suddenly stopped. Dad. This was the first time she had called Yi Nanshan Dad, since she changed the way she addressed him. She looked at his face. There was a slight coldness in her expression. My mother is gone. Please don't ruin her reputation. I don't care about the shares. I fought with you for the chairman's position, because it was left by my mother. You uncles, all of you know how much my mother has sacrificed for this company. You all know that at least half of my mother's efforts are in this company. Now she is no longer here. I will protect the property she left behind, no matter what it is. If anyone wants to take it, I can only fight back. Dad, you are such a smart person. I believe you will know what to do, right? Yi Zhen said what she wanted to say in one breath. The moment she turned to leave, she still felt a little sour and bitter in her heart. She believed that her mother's love for this man was real. But now she didn't believe that Yi Nanshan had ever loved Lu Hui. If he had, how could he bear to do that? She closed her eyes and left without hesitation. Yi Nanshan's face turned from green to white. He covered his heart with one hand and supported himself on the edge of the table with the other. Looking at the three shareholders in front of him, his expression was full of anger. Old Shun, old Jiang, why did you betray me? Chairman Zhang and the others looked at each other. In the end, Chairman Shen stood up. Nanshan, you're not young anymore. When you're old, you have to admit it. Since young people have the ability, we naturally have to let them do it. Don't you think so? Yi Nanshan's face turned even paler because of this. His hand on his chest kept tightening, and his breathing became rapid. In the end, his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Yi Zhen didn't know that Yi Nanshan fainted after she left. She was in a very good mood. After the initial bit of emotion was put aside, things were much easier after that. Things went smoothly. She successfully pushed Yi Nanshan out of the chairman's position and successfully took it herself. Of course, Li Juanqing's help was indispensable, but so what? Yi Nanshan had even used the trick of slandering her mother for being mentally ill. How could she believe that he wouldn't have a trick up his sleeve? Would he think of a more vicious idea to get her shares? No, she couldn't afford to take that risk. Now, she had a great urge to see Li Juanqing. However, when the car drove to the gate of the city mayor's office, she hesitated. Looking at the solemn gate, she took out her phone and called Li Juanqing. No one picked up the phone the first time, but it was picked up the second time. Zhenjin, I'm in a meeting. What's the matter? Huh. Then continue with the meeting. Yi Zhen stuck out her tongue. She felt that she was disturbing Li Juanqing. I'm fine. Just as she was about to hang up, Li Juanqing stopped her. How was it? Did it go well today? It went quite well. Yi Zhen thought about today and felt that it was unbelievably smooth. Thank you, Uncle Li. If it weren't for you, you don't need to thank me. Li Juanqing was taking a 5-minute break in the middle of the meeting. He was about to continue the meeting. Since it went well, you should prepare well. If there's anything you need my help with, just let me know. Okay. Yi Zhen originally wanted to say that she didn't need his help, but now she felt that with someone to rely on, no matter what she did, she was no longer alone. She really didn't know how to feel. By the way, Uncle Li, in order to celebrate my success, how about we go out for dinner tonight? Li Juanqing saw someone waving at him at the end of the corridor. He smiled, and his eyes were filled with gentleness. How about this, we'll celebrate tomorrow. There's a leader from above today. I'm afraid I'll have to accompany him tonight. Tomorrow then. Yi Zhen's face was filled with disappointment. Everything went very smoothly today, and the reason why it went so smoothly was because of Li Juanqing. She had the best news and wanted to share it with him and celebrate it together. However, since he wasn't free, she could only forget about it. Yi Zhen started the car and planned to go back first. Her phone rang at this moment. She looked at the caller ID. It was Ling Xian. An hour later, Yi Zhen saw Ling Xian, who was dressed in leather and looked capable and neat. Xian. After greeting Ling Xian, Yi Zhen sat down opposite her. Is there any progress on that matter? Yes. Ling Xian nodded and took out her investigation report. Zhenjin, I have to tell you that a long time has passed, and it's difficult to obtain evidence. There are many original records. Therefore, it's not easy to find out the truth. Chapter 791. Poisoning. What kind of poison? Yi Zhen's eyes widened in disbelief. This wasn't a novel. How could it be poisoning? Are you sure? Her voice was trembling. Zhenjin, I'm just telling you my speculation. After all, the symptoms of organ failure for no reason are very similar to being poisoned for a long time. After a long time, it will slowly take effect. Ling Xian's expression didn't look good. She didn't expect such a result. Of course, this is just my guess based on the medical records. In fact, we lack evidence. Her guess was based on Lu Hui's physical condition. No patient with stomach cancer would have symptoms like organ failure when it was only in the middle stage and had not spread to the whole body. This kind of symptom was very similar to poisoning, especially chronic poisoning. Yi Zhen understood that this matter couldn't be solved with just a guess, but in the end, She was still unwilling. Xian, please help me one more time. Of course I will help you. Seeing the medical records, Ling Xian only had her own guess, but she still needed to find out what it was exactly. Yi Zhen sat there, her little face pale, and her fingertips trembled slightly. Looking at it seriously, her eyes were red. It's actually useless. I know. Those who had worked as servants in the Yi family have been fired after Chen Wan and her mother entered the family. Now the servants in the Yi family were all people hired by Chen Wan. She was too young at that time. Although she could remember who had worked at home, there were so many people. How could she remember them all? Yi Zhen felt as if her heart was being squeezed by a hand, making her so uncomfortable that she couldn't breathe. Zhen, don't be discouraged. Don't give up. I will help you. Believe me, I will definitely find out. Ling Xian was very determined. Anyone who had heard of such a thing would probably feel that it was unbearable, right? Li Junxing was very busy these 2 days. Someone from the higher-ups came to check. It was still the economic work. He was in charge of the economic work, and there were many things he needed to do. Although he was very busy, he also paid attention to Yi Zhen's situation from time to time. When he returned home at night, he found that she wasn't in a good mood. She sat on the sofa, hugged her knees with her hands, and revealed a sense of dejection. This feeling was even more distressing than a few days ago, when she was drunk and pretended to be crazy to tease him. What's wrong? Didn't the shareholders' meeting go smoothly? Yi Zhen nodded. The shareholders' meeting had indeed gone smoothly, but Yi Zhen didn't know what to say about the ugliness that followed. She reached out to hug Li Junxing and buried her face in his chest. She had a lot of things she wanted to say, but she couldn't say a word. Some things had already happened, and she was very clear in her heart. Even if Chen Wan was really the murderer, and she found the evidence, Lu Hui would not be able to come back to life. What's more, it was very likely that she couldn't find any evidence at all. Thinking of this, she became even more depressed. What happened? Li Junxing gently patted her back and put his other hand on her shoulder. He wanted to turn her body to look at her expression. Yi Zhen shook her head and buried her face in Li Junxing's chest. Uncle Li, I'm here. Yi Zhen didn't know what to say, nor did he know how to start. After some thought, she moved away from his embrace and showed Li Junxing the medical record and the examination report on the coffee table. Li Junxing glanced at her and took out the medical record to read. The more he read, the more serious his expression became. Finally, he put down the medical record and looked at the depression in Yi Zhen's eyes. Your stepmother, There's no evidence. Yi Zhen looked up at him with a cold expression. Uncle Li, I have no evidence. These are all just guesses. Guesses couldn't become evidence, not to mention that so many years had passed. Li Junxing's brows furrowed. He thought for a moment, and thought about the key point of the problem. To poison your mother, it must be someone who is familiar with your mother's routine and your family's situation. So, who do you think is suspicious? I don't know. Yi Zhen really didn't know. I was too young at that time. No, I wasn't young either. But it's really been too long. That year, I was only 12 years old. I only remember that my mother's health was getting worse and worse. I only remember that I often saw her pale face and weak body. I can't remember more. As for the people who helped my family, at that time, I was too young and didn't know much about my family. I only remember that there were 2 or 3 people who helped in the kitchen. One of them was surnamed Chun, and I called her Auntie Chun. It seemed that she was the one who cooked. But other than Auntie Chun, there were a few other aunties. Some cleaned the house, took care of the courtyard, and some took care of the greenhouse. Speaking of which, everyone was suspicious, and everyone had a chance. Even Yi Nanshan was also involved in this matter. But she didn't dare to think about this outcome. How could she face it? Her father, perhaps the murderer of her mother? She couldn't face it. This was too cruel for her. It was too cruel for Lu Hui. What do you plan to do now? Li Junxing looked at the report. Organ failure. If this was true, then the cause of Lu Hui's death couldn't be as simple as stomach cancer. I don't know. Yi Zhen shook her head. I've already asked Ling Xian to investigate what happened back then. But I also know that this matter is very difficult. So much time has passed. Maybe I won't be able to find anything in the end. That won't happen. Li Junqing pinched her hand and gave her strength and support. I believe in you. I believe that we can definitely find something. Uncle Li? Yi Zhen looked up at him, her eyes filled with confusion and doubt. Li Junqing held her shoulder and looked into her eyes. His gaze was firm, and his expression was indifferent. Do you believe me? Yi Zhen bit her lip and finally nodded. If you believe me, leave this matter to me. I'll help you investigate. Uncle Li. But before that, you have to promise me one thing. What? I'll help you find a bodyguard. A woman. From tomorrow onwards, you have to let her follow you. There's no need, right? Yi Zhen instinctively refused to be followed. Would it be weird if I brought a bodyguard with me? You don't have to treat her as a bodyguard. As Li Junqing spoke, he got up and went to the briefcase at the entrance to take out a document. This is the bodyguard's information. Her surname is Zhao. Her name is Zhao Li. She's the sister of my driver. She's very skilled. Let her follow you in the future. But, no buts. Li Junqing was very serious. You can treat her as a driver or an assistant. Aren't you going to be the chairman of the company tomorrow? Since that's the case, it's not a big deal to have a special assistant. Don't worry, she's very capable, not just good at martial arts. His attitude was really firm. Yi Zhen looked at his expression and really couldn't refuse. In the end, she could only nod. Okay. I promise you. That's right. Li Junqing had already arranged everything for her. Tomorrow morning, she'll come to pick you up to work. You don't have to drive yourself in the future. With her around, I'll be more at ease. Yi Zhen nodded, but it was quickly replaced by a new round of melancholy. Uncle Li, can you really find out? Why? You don't believe me? Yi Zhen shook her head. I believe you. Although she believed him, she was still a little uncertain. Li Junqing saw this and sighed heavily in his heart. He hugged her again. You have to learn to believe me. And you have to learn to leave everything to me. With him around, he wouldn't let anyone bully his girl. Yi Zhen smelled the very pleasant and clear scent on his body, and her heart slowly relaxed. She was unprepared. The worst had already happened. Why would she be afraid of worse? The next day, Yi Zhen saw Zhao Li. She was dressed in a black suit. She had short hair and wasn't particularly beautiful. Her facial features looked good separately, but when combined, they looked very ordinary. However, there was an advantage to such looks. If she was thrown into a crowd, she wouldn't attract attention. Hello, Miss Yi. Zhao Li, right? Hello. Miss Yi, from today onwards, I'll be following you. Sorry for the trouble. Yi Zhen wasn't used to having a bodyguard following her, but Li Junqing was so worried. She didn't want to brush off his good intentions. In fact, Li Junqing's existence made her feel very at ease and stable. At such a time, someone was by her side, firmly on her side, and supported her in any decision. She felt that fate was very strange. Yi Ningyan wanted to harm her, but she had a night of fun with Li Junqing by chance. She was so angry at first, but now she felt very sweet. This kind of feeling was really very subtle. Thinking of Li Junqing, she couldn't help but smile and feel happy. Liking someone was like this. Thinking of him made her feel happy and happy. However, Yi Zhen's happiness only lasted until she entered the company. Yesterday, she announced the personnel order at the company. Before work yesterday, the internal documents had been sent to the entire company. From today onwards, their chairman was no longer Yi Nanshan, but her, Yi Zhen. After entering the company, the people from the planning and marketing departments stood up to support her. Needless to say, Manager Gu from the planning department used to be her boss, but he took care of her a lot. The manager of the marketing department was promoted by Lu Hui as an exception. All these years, she had been working hard in the company and still missed Lu Hui. So after receiving the notice, she went downstairs. Looking at these two managers, Yi Zhen was very grateful to them. At such a time, it was already very rare for them to stand on her side. She knew. Thank you. Yi Zhen nodded at the two managers and was about to go to the chairman's office when the marketing manager took a step forward. Chairman Yi, that. What? Yi Zhen looked at him not understanding why he was blocking her way. It's like this, Miss Yi is here. She's upstairs. The marketing manager looked troubled and seemed a little worried. She's in the chairman's office now. Really? I got it. She was not afraid of Yi Ningen. She was not afraid before. And now she was even less afraid. Chairman Yi. Gu Mingxiu had worked with Yi Zhen for more than a year, so he had some understanding of her personality. Miss Yi is not here with good intentions. Be careful. It's okay. Yi Zhen glanced at Zhao Li behind her and gave her a look. Zhao Li nodded gently. Although it was the first time they met, they had a good understanding of each other. Yi Zhen felt more relaxed and went upstairs. Before entering the chairman's office, she saw Yi Nanshan's former secretary, Chu Tei, coming over. Chu Tei was almost 40 years old this year. She had been with Yi Nanshan for many years. She had been with Yi Nanshan before Lu Hui passed away. They all knew what happened yesterday. Seeing Yi Zhen coming up, Chu Tei quickly came to greet her. Chairman Yi, Miss Yi. I got it. Yi Zhen looked at Chu Tei. Not bad. She came to report so early and changed the way she addressed her. She was a clear person. Inform everyone that there will be a meeting in half an hour. All the deputy managers are required to attend. Yes. Chu Tei nodded and left. Yi Zhen seemed to have thought of something and added, tell those managers that if they don't attend, I'll assume that they don't want to work anymore. They can go to the finance department in the afternoon to settle their salaries and leave. Yes. Chu Tei lowered her head, unable to hide the shock in her eyes. Yi Zhen had been in the company for many years, and had always kept a low profile. Now it seemed that he was just lying low. Chu Tei went to inform the meeting. Yi Zhen brought Zhao Li into Yi Nanshan's chairman's office. There, Yi Ningen was sitting in Yi Nanshan's original seat. When she saw Yi Zhen enter, her expression was very fierce, as if she wanted to eat Yi Zhen alive. Yi Zhen, you be *tch, how dare you come here? Seeing Yi Zhen enter, Yi Ningen stood up and raised her voice. You made Dad so angry that he was hospitalized, and you still have the face to show up? If I were you, I would hide at home. How dare I come out and embarrass myself? Yi Zhen touched her ear, as if she had heard something unpleasant. She turned around and looked at Zhao Li. A dog entered the chairman's office. Inform the security and get this dog out. Yi Ningen walked quickly around the desk and walked in front of Yi Zhen. You be *tch, who are you calling a dog? The one who answered is the dog. Yi Zhen looked at her finger, that was almost poking the bridge of his nose, and gently waved it away. Also, the other one is a *tch. Speaking of which, in this world, I really haven't seen anyone more *tchy than you and your mother. What did you say? Yi Ningen's face turned green. Say that again? It's the same even if I say it 100 times. Yi Zhen was not afraid of her. She sneered. Did I say something wrong? Your mother is a mistress, and you, the daughter of a mistress, shamelessly want to seize things that originally didn't belong to you. If this isn't *tch, then what is? Yi Zhen, I'll kill you. She rushed in Yi Zhen's direction and raised her hand, as if she was going to slap Yi Zhen. However, before she could touch Yi Zhen, Zhao Li, who was behind Yi Zhen, moved a few steps. Before Yi Ningen's hand could touch him, he easily grabbed and pulled, restraining her hands behind her back. Yi Ningen could not move. She kept twisting her body while glaring at Yi Zhen hatefully. Chapter 792. Retribution. Yi Zhen narrowed his eyes and walked to Yi Ningen step by step. A person like you dares to talk about retribution in front of me? Let me tell you, if there is retribution in this world, it will only happen to you and your mother. Her expression was cold and her gaze sharp. For a moment, Yi Ningen's momentum was actually seized by her. Yi Ningen's fear only lasted for a moment. She quickly regained her composure and said, Don't be complacent. Do you think you can sit in the position of chairman? In your dreams. I'm telling you, you won't get away with this. You can't compare to Daddy at all. Just wait to be pulled down by others. Alright, we can give it a try. Am I going to be pulled down? Or am I going to sit firmly in this position and watch your father, you and your mother lose everything? Who doesn't know how to talk tough? Yi Zhen didn't think that he would lose if he talked tough. Yi Ninggen's chest heaved violently. She looked at the arrogance on Yi Zhen's face and felt very angry. Lose everything? Who do you think you are? Why? Because I'm the chairman of Jianghui Company. The security guards came up at this time. Yi Zhen waved his hand, and 2 security guards stepped forward to take Yi Ninggen downstairs. Yi Ninggen kept struggling and refused to admit defeat like this. Yi Zhen, you bitch. You will die a horrible death. What right do you have to chase me away? Let me tell you, I also have a share in the company. I'm also Dad's daughter. The 2 security guards wanted to drag Yi Ninggen again, but Yi Zhen stopped them at this time. She walked in front of Yi Ninggen. Her incomparably beautiful face was filled with coldness at this moment. She just stared at Yi Ninggen with a cold gaze. What did you say? Yi Ninggen looked at her, as if she had suddenly found her weakness. She sneered. What? Are you afraid? Afraid? Why should I be afraid? Because I'm also Dad's daughter. I'm telling you. Because I'm also Dad's daughter, I naturally have half of the company's assets. Yi Zhen didn't speak. She looked at Yi Ninggen with a dangerous look. Are you my father's daughter? Yes. Can't I? Yi Ninggen seemed to have finally made a comeback. She smiled quite proudly. Let me tell you, Yi Zhen, why are you still yelling here? Be careful, or I'll get a lawyer. If that happens, you won't even be able to keep the shares you have now. She suddenly exclaimed with a smug look on her face. Speaking of which, you'll lose your shares sooner or later. After all, your shares were obtained through improper means. The smugness in her eyes was really dazzling. Yi Zhen sneered and took a step forward. She got close to Yi Ninggen's ear and spoke in a voice that only the 2 of them could hear. You want to be my father's daughter? Your mother used to be a prostitute on West Street. Who knows how many men she slept with? You don't even know which man's bastard you are. Do you really think you're the daughter of Yi family, just because you followed your mother into Yi family? Ridiculous. Yi Zhen's words made Yi Ninggen feel like a golden pheasant who had been stabbed in the foot. She suddenly flared up, screaming and rushing to Yi Zhen. Yi Zhen waved his hand and looked at the 2 security guards, who quickly took Yi Ninggen away. And along the way, Yi Ninggen was screaming and struggling. It was not until her voice disappeared in the elevator that the chairman's office was completely quiet. Zhao Li had been looking at Yi Zhen. Now it was quiet. She stepped forward and said, Do you want me to go downstairs and make her stop talking? No need. Yi Zhen had never put Yi Ninggen in her eyes, but she had never known what she had just said. But what if what Yi Ninggen said was true? Was she really Yi Nanshan's daughter? Yi Zhen soon realized that some things might never be as she thought. After thinking about it, she took out her mobile phone and made 2 calls. After putting down the phone, Yi Zhen fell into deep thought. Could Yi Ninggen really be Yi Nanshan's daughter? Yi Ninggen was only 1 year younger than her. If what she said was true, it meant that Yi Nanshan had betrayed his mother a long time ago. Thinking of the possible cause of Lu Hui's death and Yi Nanshan's betrayal, Yi Zhen really felt sorry for Lu Hui. Yi Zhen didn't have much time to think about this matter. The first manager's meeting after she took office was about to begin. This was her first battle in the company. No matter what, she couldn't lose this battle. She called Chu Tai to be the recorder and brought Zhao Li into the meeting room as a special assistant. She didn't know if Chu Tai's threat just now worked. There were a lot of people in the meeting room, and it was full. In addition to the managers, many deputy managers were also here. When everyone was here, Yi Zhen could also carry out her plan. Today, I called you here only to say one thing. From today on, I will be the chairman of the company. I will lead everyone to bring the company to a new height. Before that, I hope you can be loyal to the company. You work for the salary, and you want to get more. Only when the company is good will you be good. However, if anyone has disloyalty, betrays the company, or does something wrong to the company, then don't blame me for not being polite. A few simple words, using both the carrot and the stick, also showed her attitude. Those who could sit here weren't stupid, so they naturally understood what she meant. However, many people were still in a wait-and-see state. Yi Zhen knew that, so she had to completely win the hearts of the company before Yi Nanshan seized the opportunity to make a comeback. Yijun began to become busy. Previously, she had made a few phone calls, causing everyone to be unwilling to cooperate with the shogi company. Now that Yijun made a call, she first brought up the cooperation case with Ninghai Company. President Ning had been waiting for this moment, so he would naturally give Yijun face. With President Ning as the start, the previous partners all resumed their cooperation with the shogi company. Yijun became very busy all the time. She had just taken over the company. In order to not give Yi Nanshan an excuse to pick on her, she could only work harder. Li Junqing had been very busy recently. There was a working group from above to inspect, and he was also in charge of several projects that were related to the people's livelihood in the city. He was busy, and so was Yijun. After Li Junqing was done with his work for the past few days, it was Friday. He finally had some free time. He suddenly remembered that he and Yijun had been leaving early and returning late. Li Junqing frowned. When he was about to go home, he asked the driver to drive to Yijun's company. Yijun had just taken over as the chairman a few days ago, so she was very busy. When she received Li Junqing's call, she hadn't reacted yet. Uncle Li. Yes. I'm downstairs at your company. Come down. Yijun looked at the time. It was already past the time to get off work. It was just that she had been like this during this period of time. Every day, she worked overtime until very late. Sometimes, when it was too late, she would choose to sleep in the small lounge attached to the company. I still have documents in my hands that I haven't finished reading. Zhenzhen. Li Junqing suddenly turned serious and called her name in a very gentle voice. If you don't come down, I can only go up to look for you. He had such a beautiful voice, but he had to say such threatening words. Yijun looked at the time and thought about how she had been reading documents day and night these past few days. She had been looking at the previous data and the information of those customers who weren't working with her. Okay, wait a moment. I'll come down right away. When Yijun went downstairs, she looked around to make sure that no one had noticed her before getting into the car. This action naturally aroused Li Junqing's dissatisfaction. As soon as she got into the car, he brought her body into his arms. What? Am I that shameful? No, I didn't mean that. You didn't mean that? You're acting like a thief? I really didn't. Yijun shook her head and tried to change the topic. By the way, what are we eating tonight? Don't change the topic. Li Junqing wouldn't be fooled by her. It doesn't matter what we eat tonight. But tell me first, what did you do wrong these past few days? Me? Did I do something wrong? Yijun didn't understand. She thought about it seriously, but she couldn't figure it out. In the end, she shook her head. I don't know. As soon as she finished speaking, Li Junqing bit her lips gently. It wasn't heavy, but it was a little painful. Yijun bit her lips. You can't figure it out? Li Junqing pretended to continue biting her. Chapter 793. Yijun didn't say anything. She looked at Li Junqing and felt that he would be angry. Her lips moved. For the first time, she didn't dare to look into Li Junqing's eyes. Uncle Li, my friend is looking for me for something very important and private, so. Very private? Li Junqing heard a sentence just now. She said that the matter you asked her to investigate has come to light. What did you ask her to investigate for you? What do you have that you can't let me know? He thought that she had no secrets about what had happened before she passed by in front of him. Uncle Li. Or in your heart, you don't treat me as your boyfriend at all? I don't. Yijun didn't know what else she could say. It wasn't that she felt that Li Junqing was shameful, but Ling Xian knew that the person that night was Li Junqing. Now, she suddenly wanted to bring Li Junqing to Ling Xian. Since you don't, I'll go with you. Uncle Li. Address. For the first time, Yijun knew that Li Junqing could have such a strong side when he was stubborn. Her lips moved. She didn't want to say the address. Li Junqing asked Xiao Zhao to stop the car and pull over to the side of the road. Li Junqing just looked at her face. Address. Uncle Li. I'm just going. I'll be back soon. Yijun. Li Junqing looked at the troubled expression on her face. Either I go with you today, or you don't have to go today. This was a multiple-choice question. Yi Zhen sat motionless. The atmosphere in the car was a little stiff. Li Junqing didn't have to go, but Yi Zhen's attitude made him a little uncomfortable. During this period of time, he had become patient and went first. However, he didn't understand why Yi Zhen was always afraid to appear in front of others with him. Was he really that shameful? Yi Zhen bit her lip. Before she could think about it, Li Junqing suddenly sighed. Forget it. Making things difficult for you is making things difficult for myself. What's the point? Get out of the car. As he spoke, he glanced outside. Zhao Li has already driven the car over. Let her send you there. His attitude changed so quickly that even Yi Zhen was surprised. Uncle Li. Li Junqing held her waist and kissed her on the lips. He said in a helpless and doting tone. You've already called me uncle. How can I argue with a niece like you? Yi Zhen's face suddenly turned red. She lowered her head in embarrassment. When he said the word niece, she couldn't help but think of the times when they were intimate. He also liked to play this kind of prank. My dear niece, are you happy that uncle is doing this? Don't you like to call me uncle? If you call me a few more times, I'll have more energy to feed you. Blushing, Yi Zhen realized that he could still think like this at this time. Go. She knew that he was more than 10 years older than she was, so his behavior was naturally much more mature than hers. In the few months that they had been together, he had often been like this, going along with her and taking care of her. No matter what she did, he never seemed to get angry. Was this the difference between a mature man and her? Yi Zhen bit her lip and suddenly said as if she was going all out. Actually, it's not impossible. If Uncle Li wants to go, then let's go together. Li Junqing looked at her with a gentle gaze. Don't force yourself. You know I never like to force you. I'm not forcing you. She was just not used to it. She had a good relationship with Ling Xian like sisters. There was nothing wrong with bringing Li Junqing to her. Li Junqing looked like he was considerate of her. Really don't force yourself. I can give you time until you're willing to introduce me to others. Li Junqing let go of her with a magnanimous expression. But there was also a hint of disappointment hidden in his magnanimity. Since it was an equal relationship, it was naturally sincere for sincerity. He was honest with her. He took her to see his parents and friends. But if she still held back from him, it would be too much. Yi Zhen blamed herself more and more. Ever since they met, it seemed that he had always given in for her and thought more. It's okay. I really won't force myself. As if afraid that he wouldn't believe her, she took the initiative to hug his waist as she spoke. She told him the address. Li Junqing hugged her with his hands. At an angle that she couldn't see, the corners of his lips curled up slightly. How could there be disappointment in his eyes? There was only joy. He lowered his head and kissed the top of the little girl's hair. It was better to put such an innocent little girl in his arms and protect her well. Ling Xian was shocked when she saw Li Junqing appear with Yi Zhen. Especially when she saw Li Junqing's face in the surveillance camera, she was even more shocked. She couldn't help but look at Yi Zhen. Xian, let me introduce you. This is my boyfriend, Li Junqing. Uncle Li, this is my good friend Ling Xian. Hello. Li Junqing was the first to reach out and greet Ling Xian. Ling Xian looked at his face and couldn't come back to her senses for a long time. Finally, her gaze fell on Yi Zhen's face. What did you call him? Before Yi Zhen could think of how to answer, Li Junqing answered on her behalf very considerately. The title isn't important. This is just a little fun between us as a couple. The words "a little fun between a couple" almost made Yi Zhen choke on her saliva. She couldn't help but turn to look at Li Junqing. How could he say such nonsense? It wasn't like that at all. The awkwardness on her side hadn't subsided yet. Ling Xian seemed to have just reacted and let out a loud, "Ah." Yi Zhen and Li Junqing were shocked by her cry at the same time. Li Junqing? Ling Xian came from the Ling family, so she naturally couldn't be stupid. She almost immediately realized the other party's identity. Are you that Li Junqing? Yes. Li Junqing smiled. If there are no accidents, I'm probably the only Li Junqing in Qing City. Oh my god. Ling Xian couldn't help but stare at Yi Zhen again. Did she have to be so lucky? She casually slept with a man, and she slept with a mayor? The corners of Yi Zhen's mouth twitched, and her smile was a little bitter. There were some things that she really didn't know how to say. Xian, didn't you say that you have some clues about the matter I asked you to investigate? Ling Xian restrained her expression because of her words and suddenly became serious. Yes, I found something, and I can show it to you. Yi Zhen and Li Junxing walked to the sofa beside her office and sat down. Ling Xian handed the information in her hand to her. Yi Zhen took it and opened the information. She wasn't in a hurry to read it. Instead, she turned around and glanced at Li Junxing. His expression was a little too calm. Thinking of what he said just now, Yi Zhen didn't want to hide it from him anymore. She directly took out the information and started reading. With this, she realized that things were really interesting. Speaking of which, Yi Nanshan was not wrongly accused by his grandfather of being a poor boy from the countryside. He wasn't born in the countryside, but he was similar to the countryside. He came from a small county in Z province. Ever since he was young, his grades had been considered outstanding. Yi Nanshan had been conceited since he was young, not only because of his good grades, but also because he was good-looking. Without a good appearance, how could he have attracted Lu Hui's attention back then? Later, he came to Qing City to study and entered Qing City University. There he met Lu Hui. If it was just a simple acquaintance, there would naturally be no problem. However, Yi Nanshan and Lu Hui's acquaintance was probably premeditated. Yi Nanshan knew a girl from next door in his hometown. That girl was none other than Chen Wan. When Yi Nanshan was with Lu Hui, he wasn't with Chen Wan. However, he could guess what happened later. He took a fancy to the benefits that Lu Hui represented, and what kind of benefits would be produced by marrying Lu Hui. His good looks had successfully attracted Lu Hui's attention. In this way, he and Lu Hui's relationship would be smooth sailing. After getting together with Lu Hui, Yi Nanshan would pretend at first, but later, he wasn't even willing to pretend anymore. In front of Lu Hui and the Lu family, he was naturally a good gentleman. However, in a place where Lu Hui and the Lu family couldn't see, he picked up Chen Wan. Not only did he pick her up, but he also found her a house alone for her to live in. Yi Nanshan was in love with Lu Hui, but at the same time, he was with Chen Wan. Later, he and Lu Hui were going to get married. For some reason, Chen Wan didn't want to stay and wanted to leave. Because of this, the two of them separated for a period of time. Later, when Yi Nanshan and Lu Hui were officially married for less than 3 years, Chen Wan came to Yi Nanshan again. The two of them didn't know what was going on, but naturally, they rolled together again. This time it wasn't just once or twice. Yi Nanshan's moves were not new. He helped Chen Wan settle down. To prevent Lu Hui from finding out, he arranged for Chen Wan to stay far away from the Lu family's villa, on the other side of the city. In this way, even if he had to spend half a day to see Chen Wan, he was willing. After all, only by being far away would he not be found out. Later, Lu Hui got pregnant and had Yi Zhen. When she first got pregnant, because Lu Hui's pregnancy wasn't good, the Lu family was very concerned. Yi Nanshan was afraid of being found out, so he didn't dare to act rashly. Therefore, he rarely went to see Chen Wan. Instead, he began to focus all his attention on Lu Hui. That was the time when he and Lu Hui were at their best. However, it was also at that time that Chen Wan found out she was pregnant. She was scared and desperately called him, asking him to appear. Therefore, there was what happened later. Yi Nanshan couldn't let Chen Wan abort the child. Therefore, while comforting Chen Wan, he also had to prevent Lu Hui from finding out. Fortunately, because of Yi Zhen's birth, Chen Wan focused all her attention on the child. Because Yi Nanshan had a chance to breathe, he asked Chen Wan to give birth to the child. Chen Wan didn't know what to think, but she finally agreed. Then she gave birth to Yi Ningen. However, no one knew what happened after that. Chen Wan left Yi Nanshan alone. Yi Nanshan looked for her for a long time. The reason why she left was not shown, so Yi Zhen had no way of knowing. Chapter 794. Yi Zhen looked at the information and forced herself to continue reading. Chen Wan was kept by Yi Nanshan and later gave birth to a daughter, Yi Ningen. Looking at Yi Ningen's birth date, that was less than half a year apart from hers. Yi Zhen felt extremely mocked. She really pitied Lu Hui, really pitiful. Now it seemed that Yi Nanshan didn't have any true feelings for Lu Hui. He was clearly using her from the beginning to the end. He came from an ordinary background and got resources. He used Lu Hui to get promoted and get resources. He opened a company and improved his status. Hate, really hate. Yi Zhen gritted his teeth and endured the hatred in his heart as he continued reading. She didn't know what happened in the meantime, but for a period of time, Yi Nanshan stopped contacting Chunwan. Maybe it was because he was afraid of being discovered by Lu Hui, or maybe it was for other reasons. Yi Zhen looked at the information and realized that there was a period of time when Yi Nanshan was running for Qingqing's top 10 entrepreneurs. No wonder. Yi Zhen thought of Lu Hui and felt a burst of heartache. Mom, you gave up everything for this man. You thought you got true love, but you didn't know that the other party was using you from the beginning to the end. He was deceiving you. There was no sincerity at all. But you hurt your heart, and even lost your life for such a man. Yi Zhen clenched the thin pieces of paper and felt a pain in her heart. Her palm suddenly warmed up. Her hand was held by someone. She turned her face and found that Li Junqing was holding her hand. The way he looked at her was very gentle. Yi Zhen's heart warmed, and she had an inexplicable urge to cry. She originally only had a few doubts, but now because of this information, her doubts rose to 10. If Yi Nanshan's feelings were fake from the beginning, then could he be a suspect in Lu Hui's death? The paper in her hand was taken away by Li Junqing, and he finished reading the rest of the investigation. He looked up and met Ling Xian's gaze. This is the information you investigated? Yes. Ling Xian felt a little pressured now. She didn't expect Yi Zhen to find such a powerful man. He was actually the new mayor of Qingqing. Li Junqing nodded. Do you have a backup? Ah, yes. Send a copy to my email. After Li Junqing said that, he picked up a pen and paper and wrote down the email address. Yi Zhen didn't know what he was going to do, but Ling Xian obediently sent the backup investigation information to Li Junqing. Li Junqing took out his phone to receive it and forwarded it. At the same time, he sent a message. Putting down his phone, he met the sadness in Yi Zhen's eyes and squeezed her hand. All right, don't think too much. Leave the rest to me. Yi Zhen fell silent. Leave it to him. What could he do? Lu Hui was no longer there. She was dead, and no matter what they did, she would never come back to life. Believe me, I will definitely seek justice for your mother. Yi Zhen looked at Li Junqing. There was sadness in her eyes, but now was not the time for her to be sad. She really had a lot of things to do. Ling Xian did not speak. This was the first time she had seen her friend like this. Are these too serious? Yi Zhen thanked Ling Xian and left. She got into Li Junqing's car again. Her mood was still very low. What do you want to eat tonight? Li Junqing squeezed her palm and pulled her into his arms. He really didn't like to see the little girl so depressed. She should smile more. Her facial features were bright, but she didn't smile much. Yi Zhen shook her head and said, whatever. Why is it always whatever? Li Junqing kissed her lips gently. Why don't we eat hot pot? It's starting to get a little cold. Hot pot is the best. Okay. Yi Zhen wasn't very interested. What she wanted to do the most now was to find out the cause of Lu Hui's death and avenge Lu Hui. Only then could she be worthy of Lu Hui's spirit in heaven. Zhen. Yes. Don't think too much. Li Junqing kissed her lips gently and made her look at him. Everything will work out when it comes to it. You have to believe me. Yi Zhen nodded. At this time, Li Junqing was like a driftwood to her. Other than trusting him, she didn't know what else she could do. On one end, Yi Zhen was still waiting for the results of Li Junqing's investigation. On the other end, Yi Nanshan's lawyer came to the door again. He wanted Yi Zhen to hand over the shares, saying that he had doubts about the will. She wasn't qualified to inherit Lu Hui's shares. Yi Zhen ignored him, but Lawyer Ding said that if she didn't come out to solve the problem, it would be up to the judge to decide how to award the shares and who to award them to. Whatever. Yi Zhen put down the document in her hand. After learning that her mother's matter might be related to Yi Nanshan, the little bit of father-daughter affection, she had for Yi Nanshan disappeared without a trace. You can go and sue, or you can let the court decide, but please also tell Yi Nanshan. The heavenly Tao is clear, and retribution is not good. I'm waiting to see the retribution of their family of 4. Lawyer Ding failed to communicate with Yi Zhen, so he had to leave first. However, before Yi Zhen was about to go home that day, she was blocked by Yi Ningen. She didn't enter the company, but blocked the company's parking lot, next to her car. Speaking of which, Yi Ningen used to work in the company. However, the first thing Yi Zhen did after becoming the chairman was to fire Yi Ningen. It didn't make sense that she couldn't even be the planning team leader before. But Yi Ningen still had a position in the company. Yi Zhen and Zhao Li were about to walk to their cars when Yi Ningen appeared. Yi Zhen, don't go too far. I'm warning you. If you don't want to embarrass yourself, hand over the shares and return the company to Dad. Otherwise you'll suffer. What a joke. Yi Zhen looked at this person and really didn't know who Yi Ningen looked like. Without Yi Nanshan and Chen Wan's scheming, even her IQ wasn't online. I don't know how I'll lose face holding my own things. Yi Ningen had a look of disdain. What? Have you forgotten what you said today? You asked Dad to sue you. Don't you want to go to court with Dad? I don't understand. What good will it do you if you go to court? I don't believe that Li Juanqing's family will allow a disobedient and unfilial person to go to court with her own father. Whether they will or not is the Li family's business. It has nothing to do with you. If you have the time, why don't you go back and accompany Yi Nanshan? Enjoy your rare leisure time. Yi Zhen, you're really the most shameless person I've ever seen. You don't even call me Dad. I'll definitely tell Dad about this. Tell Dad. Whatever. She didn't care at all. Yi Zhen didn't want to argue with Yi Ningen. That was boring at all. He walked past Yi Ningen and was about to leave when he saw Yi Ningen suddenly smile. Okay, Yi Zhen. If you don't give the shares to Dad, and don't let him be the chairman of the company again, just you wait. I want to see. Will you still be able to smile in a few days? Her smile was strange, and her words were even more strange. Yi Zhen didn't want to pay attention to her. He got into the car, but he couldn't help but start to think about the meaning of Yi Ningen's words. What did they prepare? Yi Zhen soon found out, because Yi Nanshan really did sue her. Yi Nanshan submitted a petition to the Qing City Court, saying that when Lu Hui died, she was unconscious, so the will didn't count. Not only that, Yi Nanshan even took out a new will. The date of the will was before the later will. The content of this will said that Lu Hui knew that she didn't have much time left, so she gave all the shares in her hands to Yi Nanshan to inherit. And Yi Zhen only had some real estate and funds under his name. As soon as this will was written, Yi Zhen received a subpoena from the court. When Li Junqing returned home, he saw the subpoena on the coffee table. Yi Zhen sat on the sofa, a little lost in thought. Picking up the subpoena and glancing at it, Li Junqing sat down beside Yi Zhen and patted the back of her hand. Don't worry. There's already some progress in the matter. You asked someone to investigate. It's just a few days. I'll get someone to investigate as soon as possible. Really? What did you find out? A nanny who worked in the Yi family back then. She said that she once saw the chef working in the kitchen, put something in your mother's tea. Really? Yi Zhen suddenly became excited. She looked at Li Junqing with an anxious expression. Where's that chef? Did you find him? Not yet. Li Junqing looked at Yi Zhen, not wanting to disappoint her. But don't worry. I've already sent someone to look for him. It just needs time. Yi Zhen's expression was a little depressed. She looked at Li Junqing. It's been so long. How did that nanny know? Also, who's that nanny? The nanny's surname is Wang. How did I know? It's because I asked someone to investigate all the people who worked in the Yi family over the years. Because your mother was in charge of the Yi family back then, your mother managed the family very well. But the servants' salaries were all paid by the housekeeper. So the nanny couldn't remember how many people there were back then. However, the chef usually had a good relationship with her, so she remembered. According to the records, she found the nanny who worked in the Yi family back then. The nanny didn't know that after so many years, there were still people investigating what happened back then. So when she found out that the chef had put something in Lu Hui's tea, she asked. In the end, the chef said that she had seen wrongly. Because she had a good relationship with the chef, she believed the other party's explanation. Now, Li Junqing had already asked for the chef's name, but the country was so big. It was a little difficult to find someone who only had a name. Fortunately, we already have a direction. Jinjin, don't worry. There should be a response in a few days. Yizhen nodded. She knew that it had been too long. It would be difficult to find all the evidence in a short time. But this was already very good news. At least this proved that her mother's death was really not because of stomach cancer, but because of someone else. Then what about this? Chapter 795. If she really had to return the shares to Yi Nanshan, she would definitely vomit to death. When Yizhen thought of this, she felt uncomfortable. There's no need. Li Junqing smiled and pinched her palm. Don't worry. I have a way. The will in his hands can't be real. I also believe it's not real, but I'm afraid that there's a chance. Even if it's real, as long as you feel suspicious, you can refuse to execute it. The transfer of shares requires the signature of the person in question. If you don't agree, it's useless even if he has the will. But, no buts. Li Junqing didn't want her to worry too much. Do you know? Now that the shares are under your name, even if the court rules that the will is invalid after the hearing, it won't be able to enforce it. Even if it is, it can be delayed for a long time before it is implemented. And before that, I believe I found the evidence. There were many people with the same name in the country, but it wasn't difficult to find a chef. Thank you, Uncle Li. She had asked Ling Xian to investigate for so long without any results, but Li Junqing had made such an important progress. Li Junqing put the subpoena aside and looked at the gratitude in Yi Zhen's eyes. He reached out and pinched her palm. Your gratitude isn't very sincere. His fingertips gently brushed past her palm, and she felt an itch. She wanted to take her hand back, but he wrapped his entire body in his arms. His hands slowly slid down her back. These two simple actions caused Yi Zhen's legs to go weak. Uncle Li, if you really want to thank me, why don't you call me hubby? There was a warm touch on her lips. He kissed her lips bit by bit. He traced the shape of her lips. His low voice was filled with endless sexiness. Be good, call me that. Yi Zhen's face turned slightly red. Looking at the teasing look in Li Junqing's eyes, she suddenly raised her hand and hooked it around his neck. Her red lips were slightly seductive. She half bit her lips and leaned close to his ear. Her fragrant breath, accompanied by her hot breath, brushed past his ear. Hubby, thank you. Li Junqing felt his throat tighten and pulled Yi Zhen's body into his arms. Say it again. Hubby. Yi Zhen pressed her forehead against his, and her slender fingertips gently stroked his lips. Thank you. How about this thank you gift? He lowered his head and kissed her lips forcefully. You're really a demon. You asked for it. Yi Zhen lost his strength, his body like dough. He had pinched her here and there, and she was no longer the same as before. Yi Zhen signed the document and handed it to Chu Tei. Over the past few days, she had observed the people in the chairman's office. Yi Nanshan's former assistant was Yi Nanshan's man, and he didn't trust her. That day, the assistant didn't come to the meeting. Yi Zhen wasn't interested in asking what the assistant was doing. He directly asked someone to give him his salary, and then let him go. On the other hand, Chu Tei and the other secretaries in the secretary's office followed her wholeheartedly. Their relationship was pretty good. It was also because of Chu Tei's help these past few days that her work had progressed very smoothly. Of course, Yi Zhen wasn't afraid even if one or two of them had evil thoughts. It would take time to subdue Yi Nanshan's former subordinates. What she had now was time. In the past few days, Yi Nanshan didn't appear even once. Not only Yi Nanshan, but Chen Wan and Yi Ningen also didn't enter the company again. Yi Zhen couldn't figure out what they wanted to do with this almost laissez-faire state. She suspected that Yi Nanshan had a backup plan waiting for her, but she wasn't afraid. Soon it was the day before the trial. Yi Zhen returned home early and looked at Ling Xian and the information that Li Junqing had prepared for her. In fact, the information was very one-sided. Just like how Yi Nanshan had provided that Lu Hui was mentally ill back then, the information couldn't be used as evidence. She just hoped that it would be helpful when she went to court. After reading all the information, Yi Zhen's heart wasn't at ease. She wanted to drink, but she was afraid that if she got drunk, she wouldn't be able to go to court tomorrow. She could only walk back and forth in the living room. When Li Junqing returned home, he saw Yi Zhen like this. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Yi Zhen saw that he had returned and turned to walk towards him. "Why are you back so early today?" During this period of time, she knew that there were a few big moves in the city. Li Junqing was very busy. However, no matter how busy he was, he would try his best to go home early at night. Unless it was a special occasion, or a meeting that he couldn't postpone, he would always come back to have dinner with her. Li Junqing didn't answer her question. He looked at the information on the coffee table. "Are you very nervous?" "Yes." "Do you need me to greet you and Director Sun?" Director Sun was the director of the Qing City Court. Ever since Yi Zhen got involved in this lawsuit, Li Junqing hadn't looked for him. "No." Yi Zhen looked at Li Junqing with an unusually serious expression. "Uncle Li, don't look for Director Sun, and don't look for anyone related to your profession." She was not an ignorant little girl. She knew when to stop. "Uncle Li, don't let it affect your work." She gently stroked his front lapel. She was very grateful that he had such intentions, but there were many things. Not only did she want to rely on herself, but she also didn't want to cause trouble for him. "I know people. I'm on the rise of my career. Uncle Li, I don't want to make things difficult for you because of me, even if it would have a slight impact." The seriousness in Yi Zhen's eyes moved Li Junqing a little. "It's not difficult. It's just a phone call. No need." Yi Zhen shook her head with a firm expression. "I want to win against him fair and square." She said it very easily. It was hard to hide the nervousness in her eyes. Li Junqing's heart ached a little. There was no need for her to experience these things. He lowered his head and kissed her lips gently. It wasn't appropriate to accompany her to court. After all, he was too big a target. However, it was okay to use his way to make her less nervous. Sure enough, after being kissed and hugged by him, the nervousness in Yi Zhen's heart dissipated a lot. "Uncle Li." She gave him a warm response and let herself indulge in this almost indulgent happiness. As for other troubles, she would think about them later. Yi Nanshan sat in the plaintiff's seat. Yi Ningen and Chen Wan, who were in the audience, attended with him. Yi Zhen sat expressionlessly in the defendant's seat. She never thought that one day, she would go against her biological father in court. The trial soon began. Yi Nanshan had Lu Hui's medical records from back then. There was also the will. However, Yi Zhen had another will in her hands. More importantly, she also had the medical records from back then. The doctor's statement was completely different from the medical records provided by Yi Nanshan. Yi Nanshan's lawyer was Lawyer Ding. He seized all the loopholes and led the matter to the side that was disadvantageous to Yi Zhen. However, the lawyer Yi Zhen hired was also very famous. It was Li Junqing who had recommended him to her. This person had some connections with Tang Mohan's family. His surname was also Tang, and his methods and abilities were top-notch. His tongue was like a lotus flower. No matter what trick Lawyer Ding threw at him, he could smoothly take it. Lawyer Ding repeatedly emphasized that Lu Hui had a mental problem at that time. Lawyer Tang's side was not inferior. He directly threw out the hospital's diagnosis. He said that Lu Hui only had stomach cancer, not mental illness. Lawyer Ding retorted and said that Lu Hui was depressed because she had stomach cancer, which was why she might have a mental problem. Hearing this, Yi Zhen was so angry that she almost laughed. She looked at Lawyer Ding and wanted to refute. Lawyer Tang gave her a look that told her to calm down. Before Ms. Lu Hui died, she was still negotiating the next cooperation project for the company. I want to know how a person with a mental problem could have such ability. Now the other party's lawyer is saying that Ms. Lu Hui has a mental problem? I think you're the one with a mental problem. Objection. Objection to the other party's lawyer's personal attack. Objection sustained. Lawyer for the plaintiff, please watch your attitude. We only look at the evidence. All our evidence shows that Ms. Lu Hui had no intention of giving the shares to Ms. Yi Zhen when she was alive. We all know that the last will is guided by the last will. The will in our hands is the last one made by Ms. Lu Zhen. The two sides were going back and forth, and it was very lively. For a moment it was a stalemate. In the end, lawyer Ding and Yi Nanshan didn't get any advantage, so they asked the judge for a temporary adjournment. Yi Zhen agreed. After a 10-minute adjournment, she followed lawyer Tang out of the courtroom and whispered the results. On their side, they had done their best. With the evidence in their hands and the information they had. Although they couldn't make things clear immediately, they definitely wouldn't lose. On the other side, Yi Nanshan and lawyer Ding also walked out and whispered something outside. This was the first time Yi Zhen had seen Yi Nanshan after the shareholders' meeting that day. He had lost some weight, but he looked quite energetic. His eyes were full of dissatisfaction and anger when he looked at her. Yi Zhen didn't care at all. Because of Yi Nanshan's gaze, she thought of another point. She suddenly smiled, turned to look at lawyer Tang, and whispered what she had just thought. Chen Wan and Yi Ningen walked out and went to Yi Nanshan together. Yi Zhen, on the other hand, suddenly relaxed. She had full confidence. Before the court reopened, Yi Zhen received a call from Li Junsheng. He asked her how the trial was going. Was there anything she could help with? Standing in the corridor, she listened to Li Junsheng's voice. Yi Zhen felt that all her worries and fears had become insignificant. No need. Uncle Li, don't worry. I'll definitely win. Okay. Li Junsheng smiled. Then I'll wait for you to win and go home. I'll celebrate for you. Okay, wait for me. After hanging up the phone, Yi Zhen felt as if her entire body had been replenished with spiritual power and was full of vitality. As for Yi Nanshan and the others, she didn't care about them at all. The trial continued. Lawyer Ding provided a new piece of evidence to prove that Lu Hui had a mental problem. In addition to the medicine she took, there was also the confession of a nanny in the villa. The nanny said that before Lu Hui died, she was often moody. She would either laugh or cry. There were a few times when she lost her temper at the servants in the villa. After she lost her temper, she regretted and blamed herself. She looked crazy. Yi Zhen sat in the dock and looked at lawyer Ding, who was full of nonsense. She really had the urge to pull out his tongue. Suppressing her anger, she suddenly stood up after lawyer Ding finished speaking. She looked at the judge in the court. Her eyes were clear, but her expression was faintly cold. Your Honor, I have a few questions to ask the plaintiff. Is that okay? Yes. Ask. Yi Zhen bowed and turned to face Yi Nanshan. Mr. Yi, I want to ask you something. Do you love Ms. Lu Hui? Yi Nanshan's expression changed, and he didn't answer this question. Lawyer Ding stood up. Your Honor, this question has nothing to do with our trial. My client can refuse to answer. Your Honor, my question is definitely related to the trial and the evidence I'm going to present later. I sincerely ask the plaintiff to answer my question. Yi Nanshan looked at Yi Zhen. He didn't quite understand why she was asking this question, but he still gave an affirmative answer. Of course I love your mother. Since you loved my mother, how could you bear to accuse her of having a mental disorder after she passed away? What do you know? It's a fact that your mother is insane. Yi Zhen, don't talk nonsense just because you're unwilling to return the shares to me. Fine, I'm talking nonsense. Then Mr. Yi, you said you love my mother. How could you cheat on my mother not long after you married her? Yi Zhen, what nonsense are you talking about? Yi Nanshan's expression changed, and his expression was stained with coldness. Yi Zhen smiled. Your Honor, Mr. Yi keeps saying that he loves my mother, Ms. Lu Hui. But in fact, not long after he married my mother, he cheated on her and betrayed her. Under such circumstances, I don't think he loves my mother. Since he doesn't love my mother, how could my mother give him all the shares? That's impossible. Do you have evidence that Yi Nanshan cheated? The judge asked. Yi Zhen nodded. Of course I have evidence. She glanced at lawyer Tang. Lawyer Tang took out a document at the right time. We have a DNA report. The report shows that Miss Yi Linghan, who is sitting in the audience right now, and Mr. Yi Nanshan are father and daughter. In other words, Mr. Yi Nanshan cheated on Ms. Lu Hui at the beginning of their marriage. Objection. Defendant. This kind of emotional issue has nothing to do with today's trial. Lawyer Ding stood up. His face suddenly had a trace of anxiety. Yizhen looked him in the eye, and his voice was unyielding. Lawyer Ding. Mr. Yi, I want to talk about the issue. It happens to be related to today's trial. Chapter 796. Hearing this, Yi Nanshan couldn't sit still. Chen Wan and Yi Ningyan, who were in the audience, all turned pale. Yi Nanshan stood up and pointed at Yi Zhen. Yi Zhen, what nonsense are you talking about? The will clearly stated that your mother wanted to give all her assets to me, not to a little girl like you. Mr. Yi, are you saying that my mother was not only blind, but also fell in love with you, the man who betrayed her? Is she stupid enough to give her assets to a man who almost killed her because of an affair? Yi Zhen said this, and turned to face the court. Your Honor, I strongly request that the will of that year be re-examined. I have reason to suspect that with my mother's personality, she would never give her assets to a man who hurt her and betrayed her. This was simply the turning point of the day. Your Honor, what the other party said is not true. Yi Nanshan's face turned green. Things had developed beyond his expectations. He didn't expect that Yi Zhen would use Yi Ningyan's identity to make a fuss. Not true. Yi Zhen chuckled. His face was filled with ridicule, but he didn't back down in the slightest. Mr. Yi, you and Madame Chen Wan had Yi Ningyan while you were still married to my mother. Does that count as cheating? You and Chen Wan gave birth to Yi Jianhao less than half a year after my mother passed away. Does that count as a second affair? At that time, you already had another family. You even had a son and a daughter. What makes you think that with my mother's personality, she wouldn't know anything, and even give you half of the assets? Is she stupid? The series of questions made Yi Nanshan's face turn green. He pointed at Yi Zhen for a long time, but he couldn't say a word. Yi Zhen turned to the judge. Your Honor, the facts of today's matter are clear. I sincerely hope that the court can find out the facts and make the right judgment. His words were powerful and powerful. Yi Zhen stood in the court. No one could match his beauty at that moment. On the plaintiff's stand, Yi Nanshan's face was as black as ink. He looked at Yi Zhen with resentment. The court decided that there was insufficient evidence, and Yi Nanshan's request was not supported. Yi Zhen knew that she would win, but she had been holding her breath. Now that she got the result, she saw Yi Nanshan's face turn from black to white. She chuckled, thanked Lawyer Tang, and quickly left the court. Outside, Yi Nanshan's family of 3 stood there with Lawyer Ding. Their faces didn't look good. Seeing her come out, Yi Nanshan didn't move, but Yi Ningyan rushed over first. Yi Zhen, how can you be so cruel? Daddy is also your daddy. How can you be so vicious? Yi Zhen paused and looked at Yi Ningyan from top to bottom. In terms of viciousness, I really can't compare to you. Yi Zhen looked at Yi Nanshan coldly and said, I didn't take something that wasn't mine. Yi Zhen, you rebellious bitch. Yi Nanshan took 2 steps forward, but Yi Zhen interrupted him before he could finish. Rebellious daughter? If I'm an unfilial daughter, then what are you, Dad? You. Mom hasn't even died yet, and you've already had a baby with another woman. I really want to know, does Mom know about your affair? I believe that if he knew, he might not have given you the remaining shares of Jianji Company. Yi Zhen. Chen Wan couldn't help but put on the airs of a mother. You're just a child. What nonsense are you talking about? No matter what, your father is still your elder. How can you talk to your father like that? Yi Zhen didn't respond. She stared straight at Chen Wan, acting like a good person, and sneered. Suddenly, her expression changed, and her gloomy face darkened. Her gloomy eyes swept over the 3 people present. Finally, her gaze fell on Chen Wan's face. Auntie, I'm actually quite curious. After so many years, have you never had nightmares at night? My mother never came to see you at night. Have you ever dreamed of my mother in the middle of the night? You, what nonsense are you talking about? Chen Wan's face paled. How could I dream of your mother? No. The corners of Yi Zhen's lips curled up slightly. Her smile had a hidden meaning. It's good that you didn't. After all, if you don't do anything shameful, You won't be afraid of ghosts knocking at your door in the middle of the night. Yizhen, what do you mean? Yinghan jumped out. She couldn't stand seeing Yizhen like this. Nothing. Yizhen flipped her hair and pushed it to the back of her head. I was just saying. Chen Wan's expression changed slightly. She was a little surprised. Yi Nanshan couldn't stand Yizhen's strange behavior. Yizhen, what are you trying to say? Have you caused enough trouble? Now that you've achieved your goal, what else do you want? Dad, you're so strange. You were the one who caused trouble first. Now that you're saying this, it's meaningless. He was the one who wanted to sue her for the shares. He was the one who used all means to kick her out of the company. How did it become her making trouble? Yizhen wasn't interested in staying any longer. Her gaze fell on Yi Nanshan's face. Looking at his pale face, she wasn't sure if they knew about what happened in the past. But it didn't matter. Her counterattack was just about to begin. Yizhen left the court and got into the car. She asked Zhao Li to go to the mayor's office. She knew that Li Junqing was at work, but she couldn't help but want to tell him the good news personally. However, before she could make the call, she saw Li Junqing coming out of the mayor's office building. He didn't necessarily wear a suit when he went to work. But even if he didn't, he would still wear a more formal business shirt. A dark business shirt might look a little old-fashioned to others, but he didn't wear it. However, he wasn't dressed like that. He was more elegant and had the demeanor of a business elite. At this moment, the buttons on his shirt sleeves were unbuttoned, revealing his strong elbows. His expression was very serious, as if something had happened. Behind him were his driver, Xiao Zhao, and Secretary Chen. Yizhen stopped in her tracks. Li Junqing was about to get into the car, but he accidentally saw Yizhen's car. He turned around and walked towards the car. He knocked on the car door. Yizhen rolled down the car window, revealing her exquisite little face. Why are you here? The seriousness on Li Junqing's face disappeared, and his eyes seemed to be stained with gentleness. I won. Yizhen's words made Li Junqing understand what had happened. He reached out and squeezed her hand on the car window. He always liked to do this. Really? Congratulations. Thank you. As Yizhen spoke, she looked behind him. Are you going out? Li Junqing nodded, and his expression became serious again. There was an explosion at a chemical plant in the West District. I just received news. I'm going to take a look now. Yizhen suddenly became nervous. How is it? Are you okay? I'm not sure. Li Junqing looked behind him. In just a short while, many officials came out. You go back first. I probably won't be home so soon today. Yizhen nodded. She could tell the severity of the matter, but she said, Uncle Li, be careful. There should be a fire or something at the place of the explosion. Don't get too close. Silly girl. Li Junqing rubbed her hair and didn't say anything else. He turned around and walked towards his car without looking back. Yizhen looked at his figure and ignored the gazes of others. Looking at Li Junqing's back, she suddenly felt that he was very tall and straight. Moreover, he was indestructible. Yizhen soon saw the news of the explosion. It was caused by the improper operation of the staff at the chemical plant. Fortunately, it was during the shift change, but more than a dozen people still died. This was a major accident. She could see that other than Li Junqing, some familiar faces that she often saw on TV appeared at the scene of the explosion. Li Junqing had more scenes. She didn't know if it was because he was handsome and young. His expression was very solemn. Yizhen saw that his sleeves were rolled up high, and his hair was no longer as smooth as before. However, the camera quickly moved away again. Yizhen couldn't see him. She wanted to call him, but she didn't want to cause trouble for him, so she could only give up. That day, Li Junqing didn't come back at night. The next day, Yizhen woke up early and turned on the television to watch the news. The explosion yesterday was still being reported, but the scene about Li Junqing only flashed by. She sighed in her heart and took out her phone to call Ling Xian. Before Li Junqing went to busy himself, she had some things to deal with. In order not to give Yi Nanshan a chance to react, Yizhen decided to strike first. After communicating with lawyer Tang, she decided to give him a taste of his own medicine. Didn't you say that there was a problem with the wool back then? I also think there was a problem with the wool back then. You've already cheated. And my mother still wants to give you the shares? Give you the property? Are you stupid? It's already polite not to let you leave the family with nothing. Since that's the case, what reason is there for you to continue being smug? Therefore, Yi Zhen pointed at the lawsuit and sued Yi Nanshan, a daughter suing her father. She was the first in the entire Qing city. Lawyer Tang analyzed the case for her very seriously and told her the possible outcome. Yi Zhen didn't care. What was reputation? Could it be eaten? She really couldn't take this lying down. She really wanted to vent her anger for Lu Hui. Of course, the most important thing was that if she caused trouble for Yi Nanshan in the open, they wouldn't have the time to destroy the evidence from back then. They wouldn't have thought that her real goal wasn't the shares that had already fallen into Yi Nanshan's hands. She wanted to find evidence that Chen Wan had killed Lu Hui. However, she didn't need to tell Lawyer Tang this. Lawyer Tang, don't worry. I'm not a person who pesters people endlessly. However, I can't just let go of my mother's grievances for so many years. Just think of it as me wanting to vent my mother's anger. I understand. Don't worry, Miss Yi. I will definitely try my best to win this lawsuit. Thank you. It didn't matter whether she won or not. If she found the evidence and sent Chen Wan and Yi Nanshan to prison, she would have achieved her goal. After communicating with Lawyer Tang, she handed the information in her hands to Lawyer Tang in as much detail as possible and dealt with some urgent official business in the company. She was busy until almost 1 in the afternoon. When Yi Zhen was about to have lunch, she remembered that she didn't know how Li Junsheng was. She called Li Junsheng, and the person who answered the phone was Secretary Chen. He said that Li Junsheng was now in the hospital, not in the factory. Yi Zhen couldn't sit still anymore. Uncle Li is in the hospital? What happened to him? Is he okay? Yi Zhen didn't notice that her knuckles were a little white. Secretary Chen seemed to be very noisy, so Yi Zhen didn't hear it clearly. She vaguely heard a hospital. She hung up the phone without hesitation and rushed out. If Zhao Li hadn't moved quickly, she would have left him behind. Sitting in the car, Yi Zhen felt a little guilty. She shouldn't have listened to Li Junsheng and not gone to the scene to see him. Now it was great. She still remembered the explosion in Tianjin City clearly. There must have been a few small explosions after that. The fire spread and injured many firefighters. Li Junsheng was at the scene. What if he encountered such a thing? The more anxious she was, the more she wanted the car to arrive immediately. But today, for some reason, the road was blocked. Lu Zhishuan's call came at this time. Zhenzhen. Uncle. What's the matter? I heard that your father is suing you, saying that there's a problem with your mother's will. When Yi Nanshan sued her, she didn't want her grandfather and uncle to worry, so she didn't tell them about it. She didn't even have a public hearing, but her uncle still found out. Yes, but it's fine now. She briefly explained the matter and comforted her uncle that she was fine. Your father, that bastard. Lu Zhishuan didn't care at all that it was inappropriate to say that about Yi Nanshan in front of Lu Zhen. I shouldn't have let my sister marry him in the first place. He's really an ingrate. Yi Zhen didn't say anything. Wasn't that right? Decades of feelings were all used in the end. Zhenzhen, don't be anxious. Uncle will help you with this matter. It's okay, Uncle. Yi Zhen had already made up her mind. Uncle, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Before she found the evidence, she didn't even intend to say that there was something fishy about Lu Hui's death. Why should Lu Zhishuan and the others worry? Zhenzhen, take some time to go home. Your grandfather, and I have something for you. Okay. Yi Zhen didn't know what her grandfather and uncle had for her. However, she hadn't seen her grandfather and uncle for a while. After hanging up the phone, Yi Zhen's anxiety didn't lessen at all. Thinking that something might have happened to Li Junsheng, she really couldn't sit still for a minute. When was it? Would Li Junsheng have such a place in her heart? She used to think that she was alone, but she didn't expect that she would meet someone like Li Junsheng. He was clearly in a high position, but he didn't put on any airs. He had a handsome face, but he never seemed to attract peach blossoms. The more Yi Zhen thought about it, the more worried she became. Finally, there was no traffic jam ahead, and she arrived at the first hospital smoothly. There seemed to be a lot of people in the first hospital today. Yi Zhen called Secretary Chen as she walked inside. She didn't know how Li Junqing was injured, and her heart was extremely anxious. When the call finally went through, she heard her phone ringing beside her hand. She was very familiar with the ringtone. She turned around and found that Li Junqing was sitting on the bench in the corridor. He was holding his phone in one hand, and his other hand was wrapped in bandages. His clothes were no longer as neat as they were yesterday. There were some bloodstains and stains on them. A few strands of his hair were disobediently falling in front of his forehead. Just looking at it like that, she didn't know how badly he was injured. Yizhen quickly ran over and held his hand before Li Junqing picked up the phone. "Uncle Li, are you okay?" Li Junqing didn't expect Yizhen to come over. He was stunned for a moment. "How did you know I was here?" Yizhen shook her head and didn't answer his question. Instead, she looked at his hand. Her eyes were a little red, and there were faint tears in them. "Uncle Li, it's a small injury." As Li Junqing spoke, he glared at Secretary Chen, who wasn't far behind her. Secretary Chen shrank his head and didn't dare to answer. There were people coming and going in the corridor, and the two of them were equally outstanding. Naturally, they attracted a lot of attention. Secretary Chen, who discovered this, took a step forward. "Mayor Li, there are a lot of people here. Look, I'll go back first. Get someone to guard here. Remember, call me as soon as possible if anything happens." Li Junqing's hand was injured, and Secretary Chen also wanted him to go back and rest quickly. Now that the situation at the factory had basically stabilized, Li Junqing could also take a breather. Holding Yizhen's hand, Li Junqing followed her out of the hospital and got into Yizhen's car. Along the way, many people saw Li Junqing and felt that he looked familiar. However, because his current image wasn't good, they didn't think of the mayor on TV. As soon as she got into the car, Yizhen held Li Junqing's injured hand. "Uncle Li, how's your hand injury? Is it serious? Other than your hand, where else are you injured?" "It's fine, it's just a small injury." Li Junqing raised his uninjured hand and held hers. "Don't worry, I'm fine." "How can you be fine?" Yizhen didn't believe him at all. She looked at the blood stains on her body. "Where else are you injured? Don't try to hide it from me." Li Junqing reached out and hugged her tightly in his arms. His chin pressed against her collarbone, and his voice was very soft. "Don't worry, I haven't married you yet. Of course, I won't let anything happen to me." He was still glib-tongued at a time like this. Yizhen gently pushed him and looked at Zhao Li in front of her. Her car didn't have a glass partition in the middle, and she was too embarrassed to let Zhao Li see them being intimate. Li Junqing seemed to know what she was worried about. He didn't take any further action and calmly explained the injury on his hand. Yesterday the factory exploded. More than a dozen people died, and dozens were injured. The fire in the factory was still burning, and the firefighters had already gone to put out the fire. He commanded at the scene and asked them to arrange and treat the injured as soon as possible. However, he didn't expect there to be a second explosion. At that time, Li Junqing happened to be consoling an author. Although he was already prepared when he heard the sound, his hand was still injured by the sparks that flew over. "It's not very serious. It's just a small piece of skin." Xiaochen was too nervous and insisted that I go to the hospital to bandage it. He said that he had been inside for an entire night, so he should go back and rest first. "That's good too. Go home and sleep for a while. If there's anything else, we can talk about it after you rest." Yizhen looked at the dark bruises under his eyes and felt a little heartache. "Uncle Li, don't go there again. It's impossible not to go." This matter was so big that the internet was in an uproar. They still had a lot of things to deal with, so Li Junqing could only rest for the time being. When she returned home, Yizhen hurriedly ran to the bathroom. At this time, she was glad that she came out after putting it in. Li Junqing was taking off his clothes with one hand. When she saw this, she quickly went forward. "Let me help you." It was fine if his hand wasn't injured, but he had to pay special attention to his injured hand. Yizhen carefully took off his clothes. Looking at the red stains on the bandage, she felt her heart ache again. "Uncle Li, does your hand hurt?" Li Junqing looked at her and suddenly smiled. "Why don't you kiss me? Maybe after you kiss me, it won't hurt anymore." This person was still not serious at a time like this. Yizhen bit her lip, but F took the initiative to tiptoe and kiss his lips. She tasted the taste of tobacco in his mouth. She was stunned for a moment. The slight taste of mint smoke surprised her. She only smelled blood just now, but she didn't notice that there was also the smell of tobacco on his body. But even so, Yizhen still felt that Li Junxing was very charming. She imitated him and kissed him deeply. Her hands climbed up his neck, but she was careful not to touch his wound. And because of her passion, he gave her a deeper kiss. After the kiss ended, Yizhen's legs felt a little weak. She placed her hands on his chest. She looked at him gently and worriedly. You smoked? Yes. After not sleeping for a night, he was very sleepy. He smoked too to refresh himself. Is the matter this time very troublesome? It's all right. It would be a little troublesome. He had only been in office for a few months, and such a thing had happened. He would have to deal with the aftermath, explain to the people, and explain to the higher-ups. He would probably be very busy for the time being. Don't smoke next time. Yizhen looked at him. Uncle Li, you told me last time that everything will work out when it comes to it. So, I think you don't have to worry too much. Everything will be fine. I know. Although he said that such a thing happened during his term of office, and it was due to his lack of supervision, Li Junxing didn't intend to tell her too much. If he said too much, it would only make her worry. After entering the bathroom, Li Junxing, who was about to take a shower, blinked when he saw the bathtub full of bathwater. He turned around and called out to Yizhen. What's wrong? Yizhen ran quickly. Is your wound hurting again? Uncle Li, other than your hand, where are you injured? I'm fine. Li Junxing stood there, looking a little troubled. It's just that my hand is injured, so it's not convenient for me to take a shower. I'll help you. Yizhen spoke quickly. Li Junxing looked at her with a flash of a smile in his eyes. Yizhen was good in everything else, but she was too shy in some aspects. For example, if she was asked to change places or try some new positions, she would be shy for a long time. Such an opportunity today was really rare. Li Junxing staggered and almost couldn't stand. Let me help you in. Yizhen didn't think at all. Li Junxing's hand was injured, not his foot. Okay. Li Junxing was helped into the bathtub by Yizhen. Yizhen carefully raised his injured hand and placed it on the edge of the bathtub. Be careful. Don't get it wet. Li Junxing didn't say anything and watched as she eagerly brought a towel to bathe him. He looked at the worry on her face. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.